My wife's psycho nephew keeps stealing from my son, as he's constantly going into my son's room ever since he and his mom moved into our house and just literally takes whatever he wants. But after he broke something very expensive, I finally snapped, as I decided to put a lock on my son's door until these people are finally out of the house. And now at this point, my wife and her sister are all against this idea, saying that I'm treating them like a criminal, despite the fact that this kid is stealing all this stuff from my son. And now I'm not sure if I'm in the wrong, and I seriously don't know what to do next. Here's what's going on. Okay, so my wife's sister lost her apartment a while back and moved in with us alongside her son, who is 17 years old. For reference, my son is 15 years old. They never really hung out before, but I figured they'd get along fine sharing the house. Well, the problem started almost immediately. Her nephew has no concept of boundaries. He walks into my son's room whenever he wants and just takes things. And we're talking stuff like video games, headphones, chargers, etc. Even one time, he took some money from my son. Now, my son complained multiple times, and I talked to the kid about it, but nothing changed. My wife and her sister kept brushing it off, saying they're boys and this is just what they do, that they will figure it out, but I disagreed. The final straw was when my son saved up for weeks to buy a limited edition controller that he really wanted. And trust me, this thing wasn't cheap. Well, a few days after he got it, the nephew took it without asking and broke it and said that it slipped. He didn't even apologize properly. Well, needless to say, my son was crushed. So I went and got a lock for his door. When my wife's sister and her son saw it, they were offended. She said I was treating her son like a criminal, that borrowing stuff between boys living together is normal, that my son shouldn't have expensive things if he can't share. She even said I was spoiling him and creating bad habits. Worst of all, my wife took her side, said I embarrassed her family by putting a lock on the door, and actually demanded that I take it off. But I told her the lock stays until her sister and nephew are out of our house. She got upset and said I was threatening to kick them out, but I reminded her that I was the one who agreed to let them stay in the first place when no one else in her family would. Her own parents said no, her brother said no, but I said yes. And now I'm being treated like the bad guy for protecting my son's space. I just want my kid to feel safe in his own room. So seriously, am I the jerk in this situation? Because I really don't know what else to do. Okay, no, I don't think you're the jerk at all. This is some crazy behavior. You mean to tell me this kid is taking all this stuff from your son's room and your wife and her sister are trying to be like, oh, they're just being boys. Boys will be boys. Don't worry about it. They'll sort it out. It's fine. But it's like, bro, it is not fine. This lady's demon spawn destroyed this kid's controller and said, oh, it just slipped. Sorry about that. But in reality, if he wasn't even in like his room in the first place, none of this would have happened. Which also begs the question, why is that kid going in there all the time? He's taking stuff over and over again. And clearly the son in this situation is like, wow, can this please stop? Are you kidding me right now? And I know for a fact if someone broke something of mine that I spent a long time saving up for, only to be met with like these really lame excuses, I would be very pissed off and probably never trust that person ever again. So in my opinion, I think putting a lock on that door was like the only option at this point. Literally everybody in this house, including your own wife, is against you on this. But it's like, lady, do you even care about your son? Do you even care a little bit that all of his stuff is getting stolen by your nephew? Like, holy crap, why are you okay with this? This is so annoying, because this isn't even like this kid borrowing stuff and being like, hey, I'll give it back. This literally just looks like stealing, period. There's nothing being shared. It's all just being taken from him. So no, you're not the jerk for putting a lock on the door, because these people are crossing so many boundaries and just obvious social norms. It's just not even funny, especially when it comes to like staying in someone else's house. Like, are you serious right now? Because this behavior is super toxic and you guys do not deserve to deal with it. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to AmITheJerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My girlfriend let herself into my apartment using my hidden key, all because I wasn't answering my phone. And now as a result, I feel like a huge boundary has been crossed in my life, because right now I'm really upset about this and I just don't know what to do about it. Here's what's going on. Okay, so my girlfriend of 6 months essentially let herself into my apartment, all because I fell asleep and I wasn't answering my phone. For reference, she doesn't have a key. I've never given her one, not because I'm hiding anything, but just because I don't want to. I also have a roommate, so it's not purely my call. She stays over a lot, but that doesn't mean she has open access to the place. She also has her own place that she lives in. Now, my security are supposed to call beforehand, which they did, but because I didn't answer, they just let her up. She knew where my hidden key was because she had seen me use it before, so when I didn't pick up, she came over and just let herself in. When I confronted her about it, she acted like it was normal, like being worried justified it, but honestly, I felt violated. This also isn't the first boundary issue that I've had. She's been pushing for us to share locations, which I've said no to, And she previously asked for a key in case she can't reach me, but honestly, I just don't want to do that either. This then led to an argument and her saying that even her friends think it's weird that she doesn't have a key here. But guess what? I couldn't care less. I don't want anybody to have unrestricted access to my personal space. She leaves stuff in my place constantly, which I really don't mind. However, whenever I want some alone time and I message her after work, she says something like, "Oh, my things are here." We see each other basically every day, but I'd also like to take time to myself too. To me, if you can't reach someone, you just wait for them. You don't decide you're entitled to enter their home. Like, I would never do that to her or anyone else. So seriously, is this just how relationships work out and I'm just being weird about it? Or maybe I'm just being an avoidant person because right now I don't know what to do. Okay, in my opinion, anyone just letting themselves into your apartment, especially a girlfriend of 6 months, is kind of someone that I probably would not want to be with because that is a huge violation of privacy. Like, seriously, I don't think that's appropriate at all. I'm sure you love your girlfriend and you really enjoy being around her, but dude, in my opinion, I think you've got it right. Sometimes you need some alone time just to like unwind and decompress. I'm also not really a fan of sharing locations because that's also a massive invasion of my privacy too. Like, I shouldn't have to prove where I'm at just for you to trust me. I think that's very weird and a little too pushy in my opinion. So for her to essentially extend that by being like, okay, I'm just gonna break into the apartment that he lives in and his roommate live in. Everything's normal. Everyone always does this. Like, in my opinion, I don't think that's normal and I don't think that's okay. Because you really do deserve some privacy and you have a right to having a private space that no one has unrestricted access to. And in my opinion, I think your girlfriend crossed a very serious boundary. Am I the jerk for not reminding my friend about a deadline that she literally kept joking about ignoring? Because after she forgot about it for work, she tried to blame this on me, despite the fact that I tried to help her out, but she shut me down. And now she's pissed off at me and saying this is kind of my fault somehow, and I'm honestly just not sure what to do from here. Here's what's going on. Okay, so I have a friend who I will call Jess for the sake of the story, who is very smart, but also chronically disorganized. And by the way, this is something she jokes about all the time, by saying stuff like, "Oh my god, I thrive in chaos." That kind of stuff. I think you know what I mean. Well, recently we both applied for the same internal training program at work, and it only takes a few people, and it's a pretty big deal for career growth. Now, the deadline for this was clearly stated, and there were multiple reminder emails. Jess kept saying things like, yeah, I'll do it later. Or she would say, well, if I miss it, it's just fate saying that I wasn't meant to have it. I reminded her once casually, and she just laughed and said, you don't need to be my mom. So you know what? I dropped it. I finished my application early, and I did not mention it again. Well, the night of the deadline passed, and she texted me freaking out because she forgot to submit it. She then asked if I could email human resources for her or say that there was like a technical issue. But you know what? I said no. I told her that I didn't think it was my place and that the deadline had been very clear. She then got upset and said that real friends look out for each other and that I knew how important this was to her. I said I did, but she also made it clear that she didn't want reminders. But when I said that, that just made her angrier. She accused me of secretly wanting her to fail so I'd have a better chance at getting it. As a result, she's now barely talking to me, and a mutual friend said that I could have just reminded her one last time instead of being technically correct. But I honestly didn't think it was my responsibility, and also I didn't want to be blamed later if she still didn't do it. So am I the jerk for staying out of it and letting her miss her own deadline? Because now I'm honestly not sure where to go from here. Okay, no, you're not the jerk. Your friend just sucks. She's one of those people who refuses to organize her life in some kind of like substantial way, and yet still expects you and pretty much everybody around her to babysit her and hold her hand through important things in her life. Like, by the way, the person who's named Jess in this story is a grown adult. We're talking a 32-year-old female who should have her life figured out. Do you really need your friend to hold your hand and give you reminders after you literally said, oh, don't be my mom, I don't need that? Like, okay, so which one is it? Do you need reminders or do you not? Because if you forget to do it and then come back to me and say, why didn't you remind me? I'm gonna go right back to our conversation where you said, oh, don't do that. So no, this is not your problem. Like, that is absolutely how I would feel, especially since you did try to help out in the beginning. Because at the end of the day, Jess cannot have it both ways. It doesn't work like that. And if she missed out on this opportunity, then that is literally on her back and nobody else's. Am I the jerk for telling my sister that everyone in the family thinks that she's greedy and inconsiderate? Because after years of watching her get free money pretty much from everybody, with her never reciprocating or giving anything back in kind, I kind of hit a breaking point where I said some things that I really am now regretting. And at this point, I don't know how to either take them back or even how to fix the situation because things have gotten really messy and I just don't know what to do. Here's how it all happened. Okay, so I went to lunch recently with my sister, who I will call Casey, and we were discussing an upcoming sibling trip. I made a joking comment along the lines of, maybe you should cover my plane ticket since you've never paid for a single time we've gone out to eat. And I really was joking, but guess what? She got really pissed off. For context, Casey truly has never paid for food during an outing. She never reciprocates when someone buys her something just because. She never offers favors, never offers to help when someone says they're in a crisis, and only runs errands for people when she'll get flack for not doing so. She asked me to use my food stamps on her groceries while I was homeless, despite the fact that she's been living rent-free with our dad, saying that she was broke. And it took me years to pry it out of her that she had never dropped below $600 in her bank account at the time, while I was literally close to penniless. So seriously, she's just always been this way. After my joke, she went off on me for how bitter and money-minded I've been lately, but I told her I'm not money-minded. She's just never offered to reciprocate when someone else has spent money on her. She then angrily replied that my actions were voluntary and that I was being transactional for expecting her to do something for me in return. I then tried to explain to her that normal people want to do something kind when someone does kind things for them, and I even said that she was just being shrewd with money because she's saving for a big purchase. So I reminded her that I also have big purchases that I want to make, and so does our brother, who also spends considerable amounts of money on her. But we somehow make time for her and set money aside for her birthdays and Christmas presents. She then once again hit me with this, oh, that's all voluntary thing, but at this point I snapped. I said to her, yeah, and the fact that you won't do any of that voluntarily makes you incredibly cheap. Everyone in this family thinks that you're greedy and you only think about yourself. Well, we very quickly left after that. The conversation continued over text messaging, and it was basically the same. She told me I was being toxic and that she was done proving herself to this family, when I think she's done nothing to prove that she so much as thinks about other people. I aired some older grievances out, which I honestly should not have done. I mean, they were irrelevant, but she just left my message on read. She then called our brother and told him to cancel the trip, which is when I started feeling really crappy about this. He told me I shouldn't have brought all this up, that money isn't worth fighting over, and that I should apologize to get her to still go with us. The more I think about it though, the more I wonder if by making my comment on her supposed greediness, and by saying that everyone thinks you are instead of saying that I think you are, I think that as a result, I really did hurt her feelings. I mean, everyone in the family has commented on her lack of consideration for others, but she didn't need to know that. I didn't mean to vent all of that during lunch. So, was it fair to bring up all of that, or am I being a jerk and making it about money? What should I do? Okay, in my opinion, I don't think you're totally the jerk, but I do agree when you say that that kind of was not necessary to bring up, especially when it comes to like how other people think about her. I think you totally could have been like, yeah, I think you're very rude and you're very greedy, and that would have been totally fine. But to bring in everybody else's private opinion that they've probably never shared with her by saying, oh yeah, the entire family thinks you're greedy, I think that sets a precedent that is very scary and one that is going to be really hard to get over, because now she's probably operating as if like, oh wow, my family hates me. There's no way I'm going on this trip now. So I think you could have done that maybe like a little bit differently, but also it is true. Like from what you're describing, it seems like she's very selfish and she will happily take any money you offer her. So no, you're not totally the jerk. Like it sounds like your sister needed to hear that, because in my opinion, it sounds like your sister takes advantage of pretty much everyone in the family, and that is not fair for anybody in the slightest. Am I the jerk for making my wife ride in the back seat while we were visiting my in-laws about 4 hours away? Because the entire time, she literally couldn't stop distracting me when I was driving in heavy traffic and some bad weather. Because after the fact, she said that I humiliated her, even though I did what I had to do just so we could get home. And at this point, I feel like I messed up and I'm not sure what to do to try and make it right. Here's what happened. Okay, so this happened over the holidays and my wife is still upset with me over it. For a bit of context, our family went to visit my in-laws for New Year's, and it's about a 4-hour drive in total. It's mostly highway, but it does take us through like 2 metro areas with pretty significant traffic. Now, my wife gets nervous about driving in traffic, so I always drive when we visit her family. She also tends to get car sick on longer drives and needs to sit in the front seat to help ease it. She has tried taking Dramamine in the past, but she's had an allergic reaction to it, so she doesn't take it anymore. Now, I love my wife with all of my heart, but she is not good at sitting in the front seat. She makes huge reactions to any change in traffic, grabbing the handle, putting her hand on the dashboard, gasping, telling me to watch out, etc. It's not like I'm an aggressive or risky driver either. I've never gotten a speeding ticket or ever been in an accident. But if there's a car a half a mile ahead of us that puts on their brakes, she freaks out and acts like we're all about to die. It's incredibly distracting. I've talked to her multiple times about how her reactions actually makes it more difficult for me to concentrate on driving, but she says she can't control herself because she is so nervous in traffic. Well, on the way to her family's place, she sat up front with me and traffic was pretty bad. Lots of slowdowns due to the weather conditions, and in general, just kind of a slow going. But I've been driving in cold weather my entire life. I know how to control my speed and give lots of extra space to any surrounding cars. I understand that you can't control anyone else on the road and that accidents happen, but I do everything in my control to keep my car and the people inside of it safe. Well, the entire drive, my wife is on the edge, making all the reactions I mentioned. It is very distracting to have someone next to you doing that sort of thing while driving. I mentioned this to my wife numerous times on the drive, and she always deflected blame at me for the way I was driving. Well, when we were getting ready to head back home, I told my wife that she needs to sit in the back, and our 14-year-old will sit up front with me. I told her it's either that or she drives us home. She then got upset with me and started giving excuses about her car sickness, but I told her to take some NyQuil or something else to help her sleep, but she refused to do so and told me that I'm being a jerk. But I told her, okay, well then you can drive, but she even refused to do that too. Eventually, she reluctantly got in the back seat with our 11-year-old daughter. The ride home was much easier traffic-wise, and my wife sat pretty much silent in the back seat the entire time, just pouting. When we got home, she told me that she felt sick the entire drive, but didn't say anything because she didn't want to make a big deal out of anything. She told me I humiliated her by making her sit in the back and that I should be more considerate of her feelings. So am I the jerk in this situation? Because I don't know what to do to try and make this right. Dude, there's no way you're the jerk because this is so obnoxious. Your wife is literally distracting you while you're driving. Like, is she being serious right now? I'm assuming it was probably like snowy or even just a little bit icy. And as someone who has lived up north, holy crap, you need to know what you're doing on the road. You need to have full awareness of like what's going on around you and what other cars are doing. And you kind of have to have a good idea of like a game plan if something goes south. So for your wife to sit there and be like, oh my God, we're gonna die. There's a car ahead of us. Stop, don't hit him. And like freaking out and grabbing the handle above her head. Like, dude, you gotta relax. This is not helping anything. In fact, it's probably gonna make everything worse when you're trying to concentrate. So to that extent, I completely understand where you're coming from, where it's like, okay, you have got to sit in the back seat. I can't deal with this. This is way too much for me. And you are literally putting me on edge while I'm trying to drive through this snow. So no, you're not the jerk. If she really wanted to have some kind of like spot up front, then she can either take a nap or like learn to calm down or like maybe go to a doctor for like anxiety or something like that. Because holy crap, this is completely unacceptable. And worst of all, it was for 4 hours, bro. I would lose my mind if I had to deal with that for 4 hours. Like after 2 hours of constant just stress and anxiety on her part, I would probably be tempted to be like, okay, we're turning around. I'm going home. I can't take this anymore. Because the way she was acting was completely unacceptable. And if she didn't like sitting in the back seat, then she can learn how to calm down and just be relaxed while someone else is driving. Because freaking out like that is not going to help anybody in that scenario. Am I the jerk for getting our parents involved when my brother used my money without my permission? Because right now he's pissed as he felt it could have been handled privately, even though I still decided to get our parents involved and make sure this doesn't happen again. Here's how it happened. Okay, so I have a brother who I will call Leo for the sake of the story. I love Leo very much, but one thing that's made it a bit tough to be around him is that he can be very self-centered and entitled at times. For example, whenever our family is going to a restaurant or fast food place somewhere, my brother always has his own suggestion on where to go and always sulks a bit when his idea isn't chosen. However, what he's done now crosses the line from entitlement to straight up theft. About 2 years ago, I was flying out of my hometown for 2 weeks to go to a national math convention with some classmates and teachers from my high school. During said convention, I got really hungry at one point, and I tried to get some food at a nearby store. However, the store wouldn't accept cash, which was all I had at the time. To avoid this happening to me again at the next convention a year later, my parents gave me a Visa gift card with a little over $200 on it. However, I ended up not using the card at all, and my parents just let me keep it. Well, a few months ago, I started using the card to buy games on Steam on my computer. I was keeping track of how much money was left on the card in my head, and I thought it had around $180 left on it. However, when I tried to buy 2 new games today, the card was declined. I checked how much money was left, and there was about $32 left over, and some payments that I did not remember making. Well, I immediately began to suspect that Leo had taken my card, because for one, the card was still where I always leave it, and number 2, he had taken my school issued laptop without asking a few years ago, which trust me is an entirely different story in and of itself. Now, instead of confronting him, however, I went to our mom and I told her that someone else had been using my Visa gift card. When I showed the payment I didn't make to her, we discovered a payment from an Applebee's that's in our hometown. At this point, I was totally sure that Leo had taken it, and my mom suspected it too. When she called him into the room, Leo immediately admitted that he had used the card to buy Applebee's and a DoorDash gift card on Amazon, and holy crap, my mom and dad were furious. At first, he wasn't really angry, but he was defending himself by saying stuff like, "My paycheck from work this week wasn't as much as I thought it was gonna be, and I was just really mad." And he said, "Well, I was gonna replace it as soon as I was able to because I didn't think that anyone would notice." But when I told Leo that I suspected it was him before I even went to our mom, he got really mad at me. He said it would have been better if I had just gone to him first and not gotten our parents involved. Now, while I was and still am mad with Leo, I'm beginning to wonder if he may have been right. I don't think I'm the jerk for speaking out, but my mom was in tears, and I feel bad for her. So am I the jerk for getting our parents involved when my brother used my money without my permission? Because right now I'm not sure if I'm in the wrong. Okay, in my opinion, I don't care who you are. If you're gonna steal from me, you can expect the worst consequences I can possibly come up with. And if that includes getting my parents involved in this situation, then congratulations, mom and dad are gonna yell at you, and this is absolutely not my problem. Like, come on, dude, you can't just take someone's gift card like that, regardless of whatever circumstance you're trying to make up in your head, and then try to act like this is something that you can even begin to justify. I don't care where your paycheck is, and I don't care that you plan on replacing it. You should not have taken it in the first place. Like, dude, what are you doing? This also really sucks because it's like, dude, not only is there like no trust between us anymore, if there was any in the first place according to what the original poster's saying, but also if I was in the original poster shoes, I would be hesitant to trust my brother with literally anything of mine in the future. We're talking locking things down, making sure my door's locked at the end of the day. Like, I would no longer trust him with anything I have going on because chances are he's gonna steal it. Like, this is a serious bridge that he crossed, and the fact that he stole from you once means that he absolutely could do it again. So no, you're not the jerk. This guy deserved to have a wake-up call. He can't just steal from you and think he's gonna get away with it, or that he's gonna replace it before you notice. Because regardless, it is still wrong and he should not have done it in the first place. My friend's psycho mom tried to get my daughter deported so that I would date her son, basically saying that if my daughter was out of the way, then I would have a fair shot at dating her son and changing his life. Things got so bad that they actually sent ICE agents to my house to literally investigate my 3-year-old daughter. And I'm honestly still so crazy upset about this that at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so I'm a 30-year-old female, and I'm a single mom to a mixed-race 3-year-old daughter. For reference, I'm white, but my daughter's father is a New Zealand Maori who I met and briefly dated while he did his training and worked here in the States. He and I are not together anymore, and he's not involved in our daughter's life as he moved back to New Zealand, but I do have some contact with his parents as my daughter is their only grandchild. And on top of that, I do feel it's good for my daughter to know her Maori culture and paternal grandparents as well. Anyways, I come from a well-off upper middle class family, and my friend who we will call Kate is from a low-income working class family from West Virginia. We met in college, we are close, and Kate is a genuinely nice and kind person, but is also low contact with her toxic family, which consists of her stepmom who we will call Pam, her stepbrother who we will call Kyle, and the dad. Now, Pam is on disability, Kate's dad is a truck driver, and according to Kate, her stepbrother Kyle apparently makes women feel uncomfortable. He can't hold a job, doesn't really interact with others outside the internet, has this weird fantasy about having a trad wife, and has very racist and misogynistic views as well. Last year, me and my other friend who we will call Rachel, along with some of our friends, hosted an engagement party for Kate and her boyfriend who we will call Jack at my family's vacation home in Catskills. It was supposed to just be us, our other friends, and some of our colleagues from the museum, but apparently when Kate mentioned it to her dad, Kate's stepmom Pam demanded that we let them attend, and after some back and forth, we decided to just let them come, but I opted to not formally send them an invite, and instead I just told Kate that they can come if they want. During the party, Pam and Kyle seemed rather out of place, as they couldn't really hold a conversation with anyone. When anyone tried to talk about her stepdaughter Kate and her fiance Jack, you know, the ones who this party was to celebrate, Pam would somehow try to make it about her son Kyle. In fact, Pam kept trying to talk up her son Kyle to me, Rachel, and some of the other girls in the party, and they complained about us having Taylor Swift playing in the background, with Kyle calling it feminist trash. Later, when I was chatting with our former college professor, Kyle came up to me, he tried chatting with me, asking me questions and flirting with me, and I tried being polite, answering his questions with one word or one sentence answers, but when he asked me me out on a date, I told him I couldn't as I do have my job and my daughter to look after. Well, long story short, I started shouting at him, telling them, namely Kyle and his mom, to leave, warning that I'd call the sheriff's office if they didn't, after Kyle said something along the lines of, well, I would be perfect for him, especially if I didn't have my half-breed daughter. And by the way, those are his words and not mine, while also saying that if I wanted to be with him, I'd have to put my daughter up for adoption or something. Pam then joined in, saying something along the lines of, how dare you talk to my son like that, demanding that I give her son a chance. And they eventually left after our friends and guests started chewing them out, calling them trash, and Rachel did call for law enforcement. Now, Kate did profusely apologize for her stepmom and stepbrother's behavior, but I assured her that I don't blame her, as she did warn me about them, but I just didn't think that it would be this horrible. Over the next year or so, Pam did message me on Facebook a few times, saying things like, how dare you talk to my son like that? You people think you're too good for us, complaining that we've previously never invited her or her son to anything, and that I should apologize to and go on a date with her son. And mind you, I'm friends with Kate and not her stepmom and stepbrother. Well, I reminded her that her son is a coddled high school dropout who can't hold a job. Pam herself is unemployed, her son is a racist and misogynistic bum, and her family, except for Kate, is trash. While I actually do have a well-paying job, I've got a master's degree, I do not share the same toxic views of her or her son, and that I'm more than capable of supporting myself, something neither her nor her son could do. I then blocked Pam, and for some reason it slipped my mind to also block Kyle. And keep this in mind because this will be important later on. I did tell Kate and the others in the friend group about this, and Kate apologized for her stepmother again and revealed that her stepmom and Kyle have been low-key stalking me and Rachel, looking at our posts on Instagram and TikTok, and watching videos we post of us going on family boat trips, eating out at restaurants, and Pam apparently being envious of my family's 2023 Christmas dinner party. Now, because of this, Pam has been telling Kate how she believes that she deserves the life me and Rachel live, hence why Pam has been trying to pressure Kate to hook Kyle up with either me or Rachel, to which Kate has repeatedly refused to do so. The engagement party we held for Kate was back in July of 2024, and between then and a few days ago, I haven't heard from them. However, last weekend I was with my daughter at my family's house in the Upper East Side when ICE agents showed up at my door, because apparently someone reported my daughter as being an illegal immigrant. Firstly, I called my grandpa's law firm, and they sent a couple of lawyers to our family home, and I explained to the agents that my daughter's dad may be a foreign national, but me, being an American, am her biological mother, and my daughter was born in Boston, so she's a United States citizen. Now, I'm not going to get into how the interaction with ICE went, as it was stressful and my grandpa's lawyers mostly handled it, but long story short, it turns out that Kate's stepmother and stepbrother reported my daughter to ICE to try and get my daughter deported, in hopes that if my daughter was gone, I would somehow be willing to go out with Kyle. According to Kate, she found out that her stepmom just created another account, and given the fact that I forgot to block Kyle as well, he was able to see me post online. They knew my daughter was a US citizen as she was born here. Kate herself told them that in the past, but according to Kate, they think it's disgusting for me to have a mixed race child, and they wanted to hook up with Kyle so they can be included in my family's social events, trips on my dad's yacht, and live the life that they think they deserve. That being said, they also think that if they somehow got my daughter out of the way, I could start fresh with Kyle. Kate also mentioned that going forward, she will be going no contact with her stepmom and stepbrother, as she and Jack did not want her stepmom trying to interfere with or dictate their married life, since they as a couple have had problems with Pam in the past. Also, Kate said she will testify in court against her stepmom and stepbrother if it really does come to that. Because of this, my grandfather, my dad, our family's lawyers, and I agree that it's best we take them to court. Now, for some additional context, yes, unfortunately, Kate did come from a toxic household, as her stepbrother was an entitled golden child who was coddled by his mom. Pam is a controlling and psychologically awful person who feels the need to control everyone, and Kate's dad is barely around, nor does he seem interested in being involved with his family. That being said, Kate's dad has been pretty much absent from most of the awful things that Kate has been dealing with during her teenage years, and when Kate did tell her dad, he would just brush it off, and that is how I understood her family situation to be. That's why Kate, up until this past weekend, was only low contact with her family, but after the incident of Kyle and Pam stalking me and Rachel, Kate and her fiance Jack have decided to finally go no contact with Pam and Kyle, as they really don't want any of their toxicity in their life going forward, and especially don't want Pam around any future kids that Kate and Jack may have. This is legitimately a crazy situation, and I just want to say to the original poster, I am so sorry this happened to you. You are seriously very brave for sharing this, because my god, this paints a picture I've honestly never seen before. Like seriously, can you imagine for a second being so crazy that you think falsely reporting that somebody's daughter is an illegal alien in hopes that they would get deported is somehow gonna win this lady over for your crazy son? Like, my God, talk about using the system in the wrong way. These people are out of their minds if they think that's okay, and I'm so sorry that happened to you and your daughter. Like, you guys don't deserve that in the slightest. You literally only invited them because they were like, oh, we don't want to be left out, please let us come to your stupid party. And then they pull this stuff, and it's like, dude, what is happening right now? So seriously, I really hope this gets worked out for you and your family, especially for the sake of your daughter. Like, that really is a crazy situation, and you guys do not deserve that in the slightest. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to AmITheJerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for telling my friends to delete their reviews of my cafe as it was glaringly obvious that they used ChatGPT to make the review? Here's what happened. So I opened up a cafe a few months ago. The premise is very small and my business partner and I live directly above it, so it's closer to a side hustle more than anything since we only open for the morning rush. Business has been steadily increasing and we've been getting nothing but good feedback from our customers so far. Last month, I invited my entire friend group to enjoy a beverage and a slice of cake at the cafe for free in exchange for honest feedback in the form of a Google review, since I wanted to try out some new drink ideas and also get a bit more traffic on our Google page. Well, my friends ate, they drank, and then they bounced, and a good time was had by all, with each of them promising to write a review the next day. Every single friend wrote a review, and every single one of them was obviously generated by ChatGPT and written in American English, which is not even the official language here. Some of the reviews even mentioned services or drink items that we just don't have. So when I saw this, I was really conflicted. While I appreciated them taking a moment of their time to write a review, I feel like not only was it a half-baked gesture, but also I think that since people can tell a fake review from a genuine one, it only affects my cafe's credibility. I mean, would you visit a cafe where the only reviews are all clearly AI generated? I know I wouldn't, which is why I've asked a couple of them to take the reviews down and redo it. I'm not entirely surprised that they were taken aback and not happy with my request. It's not pleasant to be told that your gesture, no matter how small it is meaningless. One of them even said that they don't feel welcome at my business anymore. But I feel like as a business owner, I should be mindful of credibility to the point where I have to risk offending people, and unsurprisingly, my business partner agrees. So seriously, am I the jerk in this situation? Because right now, I don't know what to do. Oh man, no, you're definitely not the jerk. I would be super pissed off if my friends didn't leave legitimate reviews. Seriously, you welcomed them into your cafe, you gave them a free meal, and then the least they could do was leave an actual review, but instead they used ChatGPT to do it? Like, are you kidding me right now? That is so disrespectful. To me, it shows that they only showed up for the free meal, but also they don't actually care enough to be like, yeah, let me leave a good review for my friend. It's like, come on, that literally would take 5 seconds. And the fact that they tried to do that through ChatGPT in a different language than the one you live in, it's like, come on, that is even more telling that no, they're not doing this because they care. So no, you're not the jerk for asking that, because literally they're only hurting your cafe. And whether this is a side business or not, it honestly is super disrespectful that they didn't leave a proper review, because that literally is the bare minimum of what you could expect from them. An obnoxious jerk keeps texting me about something that I have nothing to do with, as they were trying to reach out to the person who previously had my phone number. So after dealing with this for so long, I finally hit my breaking point where I told them to get lost or else I would sue them, resulting in them literally never contacting me ever again. Here's what happened. Okay, so at the time I was 15 years old and I had a new number. I got this text message from someone who we will call Dan, and they were wondering about a property somewhere the previous owner of the number had, which honestly I assume is what they were looking for. They gave me the address, not all of it though, and I just never looked it up, but I didn't recognize the number at all or the area code. At first I was polite to the person and informed them that who they were looking for no longer had the number, and at first it seemed fine. That is, until I got another text message. It was the same person looking for the previous owner about the same property, and again I was nice, but it kept on happening. At some point I was a bit harsh, and I said that the person died even though I hope they didn't, and I said not to text me, but they did anyways, and I think it happened about 8 or 10 times in total. Now I can't be sure as I lost the phone, but after the last time they did it, I was fed up. My stepmother said something once about how the same person or company can't contact you after a certain amount of times or it's considered harassment, and to get out of that, they'll contact you from different numbers. And I think it was in a day, but I could be wrong. But regardless, I'm sure you can see exactly where this is going. My young brain came up with an absolutely brilliant idea at the time. I went back to the previous conversations and took screenshots of each time they contacted me and my responses. And I pretended to be my father and I told them something like, stop contacting my underage daughter or I will come after you and sue you for harassment. And I did this with the evidence attached that they had contacted me more than once, and that I'd asked them to stop and they continued. I wasn't sure if I really could go after them for harassment or not, but it was the only thing I could think of at the time. Well, to make a long story short, I never got another text message from them ever again. Eventually, I lost the number later, but you know what? Even still, it was great to finally get these people off of my back. Wow, you made a brave decision there. You literally played the gambit by not only being like, oh, I'm this person's dad and I'm gonna sue you, but also being like, the person who had this number is dead. Like, wow, that is a gamble. You really put everything on the line and said, okay, we're doing this. Because that is not something I would ever do. I would either block them or find some way to like get away from them and just hope that the messages would stop. But you went to a level that I don't think I would ever go to, and to that end, I congratulate you because clearly it worked. Today, I messed up by leaving my door unlocked for 15 minutes, allowing a man who I've never met before to walk into my house under the assumption that my house was a massage parlor. And I've honestly never been more confused or freaked out in my entire life. Here's what happened. So this wasn't quite today, but on Monday night, my partner and I saw a dog walk past us with no human. We figured that it was a lost dog and decided to search for it. We split up, my partner was on foot, and I took my scooter. We don't find the dog, and then we meet up on the corner. My partner then said that he was going to quickly check the park across from ours just for a second. I went home because I really needed to go to the bathroom, and this was at 11:30 p.m. at night. Now, I left the door unlocked because my partner wasn't gonna be long. And who the heck is coming to my house at 11:30 p.m. at night with all my security cameras and with all the lights on? Then, while I was on the toilet, literally going number 2, I heard someone by the door, and obviously I thought it was my partner. I yelled out and I said, "Hey honey, did you find the dog?" Then I heard the door with no response and assumed that he didn't hear me. I yelled again and I got a deep, low, strange noise. I heard footsteps coming up the stairs, and a huge 6'2" man was standing in the doorway of the toilet, literally as I'm going to the bathroom. I'm in absolute shock, and then the guy says to me, "Is this the massage parlor?" At this point, my brain is so confused. So I just tell him no. He then asks me, "Oh, do you offer other services here?" And again, I was so confused. So I look at him again and I say, "No." He then just stands there for another minute, confused himself, and then walks down the stairs and leaves. And I'm honestly still in disbelief that this happened to me, because this truly was one of the craziest situations I've ever had happen in my life. My entitled brother loves scamming members of my family and only becomes a worse person anytime he gets caught. Here's what happened. Okay, so I've recently come to realize that my brother loves to scam the family and does not like it when he gets caught. A petty example would be back in 2020, when restaurants were starting to reopen in the United Kingdom. I was about 26 years old and I was going out, and my brother, who was 28 at the time, asked me to bring back a Five Guys meal costing me about $20. Now, he promised to pay me back, so I obliged, and I gave him the meal once I returned home. He didn't have the money right then, but he promised me that he would pay me back soon. Around 2 days later, around 11 o'clock p.m. in the evening, he approached me in the living room asking for a massage whilst we watched anime, which is something he would request regularly, saying his back was aching badly due to working as a physiotherapist. Now, this time I said no. I said I'm not going to be doing any favors like that for him until he paid me back the money that he owed me. He immediately got defensive and aggressive, shouting stuff like, "You're seriously not going to do it?" hurling insults, and when I insisted I won't do anything, all the way until he pays me back, he shouted at me and said, "You should have reminded me." And I pointed out, "It shouldn't have to be on me to remind you." He then stormed off immediately, and to this day, he still hasn't paid me back. And in fact, I cut him off the following year. Although the above examples are rather petty, I bring this up because of something my dad told me a couple of weeks ago. It turned out my dad and brother had some deal where my dad would handle his phone bill and my brother would give him the money each month. Apparently, my dad realized he'd forgotten about this for months, and he approached my brother and asked him if he could pay back around $200 that he owed him. Keep in mind, my brother earns over $40,000 a year, and he lives with my parents rent-free, so money is definitely not an issue. Apparently, his response was to throw a fit, shouting at my dad and then sending him $2,000 instead, despite my dad's protests. I told my dad he was using a manipulation tactic by overpaying him in some kind of an attempt to make my dad feel guilty and put him in the wrong when my dad's request was more than reasonable. I also have no doubt that my brother didn't just forget to pay my dad either, and I've got no doubt he was trying to see how long he could do this for. Now, for additional context, I have not spoken to him in 4 years, and I cut him off completely after he screamed at me for never talking to him and then tried to out me as trans. I have since moved out in 2021, and honestly, I am so glad to finally be away from that man. Yeah, that sounds like a really awful situation, and I'm so glad you're away from them as well. Because seriously, your brother is definitely a con artist. You mean to tell me he refused to pay you back, what, the $20 for that meal, and then try to be like, "Well, you should have reminded me." It's like, dude, I really should not have to remind you about this. Like, are you kidding me right now? This should have been a simple situation that you could have easily fixed. All you gotta do is pay me back and then everything's fine. So the fact that they freaked out on you and they continue to like basically use these manipulation tactics, not only on you, but also on your family, like that's crazy in my opinion, and I don't blame you for being annoyed. So yeah, this is super weird, and I honestly don't blame you for a second, because your brother sounds like an absolute piece of work. Am I the jerk for saying that my boyfriend's friend can't visit us now that I'm pregnant? Because this guy is constantly making a mess and making my life harder, especially considering that I have a child on the way. Here's what happened. Okay, so my boyfriend has a friend who is currently pursuing the whole van life thing, where literally they're living out of his van. The past several months, this friend has been coming by our house a couple of days a week. Each time he's here, he stays around 10 to 12 hours to use the shower, use our kitchen and washing machine, and use our Wi-Fi. I've been unhappy with the lack of privacy and the extra work for quite a while, which my boyfriend is well aware of, but has been putting up with because the friend is down on his luck and could use some help. However, now that I'm pregnant, I'm ready for this situation to end. I want to be able to lay on my couch without pants on and not have to get dressed, so to say, whenever they decide to come over. I also hate having to talk about my private medical details with my partner, all while trying to whisper because they're in the next room. I'm also just worn out in general, and the friend is generating so much extra work. He comes into our house after doing construction jobs and tracks in a ton of dust and dirt, and every time he showers, he somehow leaves a thick coating of body hair all over the shower that now I have to clean up before I can shower again. After he uses the washing machine, there are sticks and leaves and sand all over the laundry room. Not only does he hog the kitchen when I want to cook meals sometimes, but he also leaves all of his dirty dishes for me to deal with afterwards. Ideally, I'd have my boyfriend deal with the extra work since he's the one inviting the dude over, but with his busier work schedule, most of the housework falls on me. So to me, it's a no-brainer that the friend finds somewhere else to be for a couple of months to give me some privacy and a break from the added work. However, when I brought this up to my boyfriend and I told him it was time to set a boundary with the friend, he told me it was first of all a very awkward and weird thing to ask of his friend, and secondly, a cruel and insensitive thing for me to request. He's willing to do so for me, but at the same time is making it very clear that he thinks I'm a monster for even asking him to do this. So is it actually unreasonable for me to put a no visitors rule in place for the next few months? Because right now I seriously don't know what to do. Okay, in my opinion, this is your house and your space, and if someone is literally taking up that space and not being kind to it, then something needs to change. And I honestly can't fathom the fact that your boyfriend's trying to be like, wow, you're being cruel and unusual. This is really insensitive. And yet here you are sitting there like, oh, okay, but guess what? I'm pregnant, idiot. What do you think is gonna happen? This friend literally is not gonna have any space in this house, and the boyfriend's gonna learn that really quickly. They're gonna learn real fast that this child is gonna take precedent in almost every aspect of your life. So he can either deal with this now or deal with it later when it's probably gonna be too late, and feelings get hurt and this guy really gets upset. So no, you are definitely not the jerk for saying that to your boyfriend, and you're definitely not making things awkward or being cruel and insensitive. That, in my opinion, is a really dumb thing of your boyfriend to say, and that is completely out of line. My entitled sister's demon spawn of a child destroys my $2,000 gaming setup all in one night while I was sleeping, and after I discovered the damage, I told her that she can either pay up or I would take her to court. But now she has literally blocked me on everything, saying that she will never pay for any of the damages. And I'm honestly so completely shocked by all of this that at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. To start things out, I'm a 25-year-old female, and I'm honestly at my breaking point with this one. I need outside perspective because my entire family is acting like I'm a jerk for standing my ground. So for a bit of context, I'm a student software developer and a pretty serious PC gamer in my free time. I live alone in a one-bedroom apartment that I've spent years making cozy and functional, and I saved up for a long time to build my dream PC setup. Triple monitors, custom mechanical keyboard, ergonomic chairs, the works. Altogether, my rig is worth a bit over $2,000, and I take care of it as if it's a child. Last weekend, my older sister, who's 30 years old, asked if she could crash at my place for one night because her apartment was being fumigated and her husband was out of town. She has a 3-year-old who we will call Max, who is, let's just say, very spirited. I love him, but he is just a little chaos gremlin. I hesitated, but she swore she would keep an eye on him and that it would just be for one night. They show up Saturday afternoon, and immediately it's clear that she wasn't kidding about Max being a handful. Within 10 minutes of arriving, he had pulled 4 books off of my shelf, thrown my houseplants on the floor, and spilled juice on my area rug. Now, I tried to stay chill. He is only 3 years old, I mean, I get it. But I asked my sister politely to please keep him out of my office where my PC setup is. Well, after I say that, she just rolls her eyes at me and goes, well, he's just exploring. He's curious. This is normal. But thankfully, she closes the office door anyways. Cut to Sunday morning, and I wake up to screaming. Max had apparently woken up before his mom, managed to open the office tower's door and decided my setup was his new jungle gym. He pulled down one of my monitors, cracking the screen. He stuck crackers into the PC tower's ventilation slots. And no, I'm not kidding. He yanked out my keyboard's keycaps and had colored on my chair with permanent marker. But the cherry on top of all of this is that he poured apple juice into the tower itself. Like literally into it. When I tell you I went silent, I mean I went dead silent. My sister comes in, sees the damage, and just says, "Oh no," in this incredibly flat tone, like someone knocked over a cup of coffee. I then start freaking out, and she has the audacity to say to me, "Well, you should have baby-proofed the room if it was that important to you." And at this point, I just lost it on her. I told her that for one, she knew he wasn't supposed to be in there, and secondly, this is my space, not a daycare. Also, baby-proofing a $2,000 gaming setup is not a standard requirement for adults living alone. She then told me to calm down, and then she said to me, "He's just a kid and stuff is replaceable." So I told her that she could replace it then. She said she didn't have the money right now, but maybe in a few months she could give me a few hundred. But I told her straight up that wasn't acceptable and that she needed to take full responsibility. She then left in a huff, and now my entire family is blowing up my phone. My mom says I'm being materialistic and should understand that my nephew didn't mean it. My dad said I should have locked the door if it was that important. And my brother actually said, "Why do you need 3 monitors anyways? That's kind of an overkill, don't you think?" I have filed a claim with my insurance, but there is no guarantee it'll be covered since it was technically guest damage. I also told her that if she does not pay up, I will take her to court for what happened. And now I'm getting text messages from my sister demanding an apology for blaming her kid for being curious. But I told her I would drop it if she covered the cost of repairs and replacements, or at least met me halfway. And you know what? After I said that, she just blocked me. So truly, am I overreacting if I take my sister to court over this? Because right now I'm incredibly frustrated. Oh my gosh, I cannot imagine that happening to my setup. I think I would lose my mind if that happened to me. Seriously, the fact that that kid poured apple juice inside the tower itself, like that's permanent damage. That's the kind of damage that's gonna take a while to figure out. The screen and the keyboard and the chair, that in and of itself for me would not be that big of a deal. But the fact that they poured apple juice into the PC tower itself, like dude, there's no way I would ever keep calm about that. And you better believe I would absolutely take her to small claims court because she admits that yes, this was her stupid kid doing that. And the original poster has it right. They should not have to baby-proof their house. Your sister should have taken you seriously and prevented her demon spawn from destroying your setup. So no, you are definitely not the jerk for demanding that she be held responsible because this situation is 100% her fault and she absolutely needs to pay up. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to AmITheJerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My husband just quit his job with no notice and no plan, and now I'm kind of panicking because at this point, I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so I've been with my husband for over 20 years. I love him and have never doubted that he's my person. Normally, we function as a couple extremely well. I consider myself to be very lucky in love. But I've been working 2 jobs because it has been my goal to get totally out of debt this year. 100% of my second job income was going towards that debt. I barely have any free time at all, and I can't remember the last time I had a day free to myself. I've been on the grind hard, and our economy is only getting scarier. Well, my husband came home this week, unexpectedly stating that he quit his job. He was miserable and mistreated where he worked. I've been begging him to find something new, but you know what? I kind of wanted him to have a new job lined up first. I'm miserable where I work too, and my company is aggressively downsizing. My husband is well aware that my job security for my primary job is very thin, if not non-existent, and yet he still chose to do this. He didn't give a 2 weeks notice, and he didn't have any kind of plan for what comes next. I wanted him to get out there, yes, but not like this. I feel like I've been betrayed. I feel like I'm seeing my debt-free dreams turn up to ashes before my eyes. I can't even express to him how upset and worried I am without him going into a fit of self-deprecating tears. I haven't really been able to have a productive talk with him either. He just melts down and starts yelling about how he ruined our lives. I love him and I'm heartbroken and I feel like I'm utterly alone in the world now because my partner stabbed me in the back and I didn't agree to be the only provider in the family. So at this point, I'm pretty upset and I'm very scared, and I feel like he thinks that I should be more supportive since I did want him to leave where he was to begin with. What should I do? Oh man, this is a really sketchy situation because my God, your husband literally quit his job overnight. He didn't have anything else lined up. Like, I don't know about you, but I've had crappy jobs, but even in those crappy jobs, I've still tried to have something lined up. It seems like this is one of those like spur of the moment things where he's like, no, I can't take it anymore, and then he just quits on the spot. And that really is not a good idea in my opinion. So truly, I'm so sorry you're going through this, and hopefully he's able to find something soon, because you do not deserve to be in this situation in the slightest. My coworker kept stealing my lunch, so I decided to get some revenge by taking a crap in my coworker's drawer. And honestly, I don't regret it, and I seriously wish I'd done it sooner. Here's what happened. Okay, for a bit of context, I work in a customer service office, and this is basically cubicles stacked on top of more cubicles. The vibe isn't terrible, but there is this one guy who we will call Steve, who has this incredibly annoying habit of stealing people's food from the communal fridge. It doesn't matter if it's labeled, dated, or surrounded by aggressive post-it notes. If it's in there, he will take it. People have brought it up before, but he always just plays dumb. He'll say something like,
"Oh, I thought it was up for grabs. I didn't see a name on it."
But this guy's an absolute liar, and he knows it. The final straw was when he stole my container of homemade lasagna. Not just any lasagna, this was my mom's lasagna. The kind that takes like 6 hours to make and has more layers than a Christopher Nolan plot. I even put a note on it that says, "Do not touch, seriously." Well, the next day, the container's gone. It's washed and sitting in the sink, and Steve's breath smelled like oregano and betrayal. At that point, I'd had enough, so I decided to take the kind of revenge that would guarantee he would never mess with my food ever again. I brought in an old Tupperware I didn't care about, I double bagged it, and I made sure I was very well hydrated that morning, and I used the bottom drawer of his desk like it was my own personal porta potty, if you know what I mean. I then carefully closed it, cleaned the outside, and walked away like nothing happened. And you know what? He didn't notice right away. But by day 2, the smell was unreal. People thought something had died in the vents. Maintenance got called, and they were checking the ceiling tiles, they were crawling under the desks, and I acted concerned and even helped them look. Steve then started accusing everyone of leaving rotten food around until someone finally opened his drawer. And the scream he let out was something I will treasure forever. He ran to the bathroom gagging and took the rest of the day off. Now, was it immature? Absolutely. Do I regret it? No, not even a little bit. Ever since that day, my food has been 100% untouched. And when it comes to Steve's drawer, it still smells kind of weird. But you know what? Justice was served. And it was served warm and nasty. I'm not gonna lie, that's the grossest thing I've ever heard in my life. I mean, seriously, you could have gone to like HR or like reported them to a manager, but instead you decided to do a number 2 in a jar and just leave it in his desk? Like, dude, that is brutal. That's a little bit too much even for me, and I love a good revenge plot. Like, seriously, that is so gross. So yeah, good for you, I guess, because he didn't eat any more of your food, but also, like, maybe don't do that ever again, because that could have gotten you in a lot of trouble, and I think you got off really lucky in this situation. An entitled male Karen tried to get free food from our pizza restaurant, but thankfully my general manager saw right through his scheme, as she put him in his place in a way that honestly was fantastic to watch. Here's what happened. Okay, so I work at a pizza franchise, and I had the pleasure of being a spectator to the Karen game that took place today. Mr. Karen walks into our restaurant and speaks to our general manager. He immediately starts the game with a complaint about our cheese, as he wants to know what kind of cheese we use, where we get it from, and our thawing process that we have. He even dares to ask to see the label on one of the boxes. His reasoning is that 1 in every 8 pizzas he gets from our restaurant, the cheese isn't melted right. Mr. Karen then says, "I think she's the one that made the pizza last," and then points to the only black employee we have working there. Our general manager suggests that perhaps his issue with the way the cheese melts is that the toppings are normally put on before the cheese. So she takes his order and then he leaves to go shopping, or sit in his car maybe while the pizza's made. Whatever the case, our general manager insisted on being the only one to make his pizza through every single step, stretching the dough, applying the sauce, the cheese, the toppings. She even made sure that she was the only one to cut his pizza. When he came back to his pizza, she had him check the pizza right there in front of her to see if it was cooked the way that he liked it. Without even asking who made it, he immediately said, "Give that man a raise," as he then pointed to the only male worker we had on the clock at the time. But my general manager then told him, "Oh, but he didn't make it, I did." Well, Mr. Karen then quietly took his pizza and left after hearing that. And sure, he still had to pay for the pizza, but at the end of the day, he didn't get the free food that he was hoping for. Oh man, I can see exactly what kind of person this guy is. Literally from the people he was pointing out to the person he was trying to praise for doing the pizza right. Even though, guess what? It was probably fine the first time. And the people he singled out probably had nothing to do with the other pizzas. So yeah, I love managers who step up like this and do what needs to get done so that everybody can walk away and not have to deal with this garbage. Because this guy was completely out of line. My dad keeps taking credit for my work that I'm literally doing so that he can become a deacon, as he constantly comes to me for any kind of help with his homework, practically guilt-tripping me into doing it all for him. And at this point, I'm exhausted and I have other things I want to do with my life, and I seriously now don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so my parents have been piling their things on me ever since I was a child, and honestly, I'm at a point where I'm genuinely over it. I'm a 22-year-old female and I'm the first daughter and child, and I've been the parentified child for as long as I can remember. I used to take care of my dad when he was blackout drunk, or memorize my younger sister's schedule, or play family therapist. I think you get the idea. I've spent my whole youth working for their businesses. They have one nail shop and 2 restaurants, and I was the one doing their paperwork and taxes. Though I'm grateful that I was able to work and at least earn some money when I turned 18, I genuinely feel sad when I think about how much I missed out in life because I had all of these responsibilities. However, the main issue is that recently my dad wants to become a deacon and enrolled in school. The only problem is that he gives me his homework and somehow expects me to do all of it. I write all of his papers, I answer all of his discussions, I make his presentations, etc. I keep up with his schedule and have to spoon feed him information about basic class stuff. My parents both guilt trip me as well, saying that, oh, he doesn't know better, so you should help him out. And when he does do it, he ends up just halfway doing it, which causes me to have to redo it anyways. It is his second semester, and it has gotten to the point where he never checks his class website anymore and relies on me to check everything. I'm the one doing the readings and looking at emails. When he shows up to class or does group work, he proudly claims that my work was his own. I've brought up that I'm tired and that I have things of my own to do. I'm a straight A student in college, and I'm graduating soon. This last semester is important to me. Whenever I try to tell them to do their own work, all of a sudden, I'm the burden. I'm horrible, I'm a selfish daughter, but I've spent years trying to please them, and I genuinely have nothing left to give. I'm not trying to abandon them altogether like they've accused me of, but I just want them to stop relying on me. I'm truly exhausted, and I can't even say anything because the smallest thing turns into an argument for them. No matter what I do, it truly never can be enough, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Okay, this is really sketchy because your dad can probably get in a lot of trouble, and he's doing himself no favors by not even learning the material he needs to know. From what I've been able to gather, becoming a deacon in this specific religion is akin to a lot of schoolwork that you would expect from college. It's not easy and there's a lot of things that go into it, so for him to be doing this dishonestly at that, in my opinion for starters, is incredibly ironic, but also it's just completely dishonest. Wouldn't you want to know exactly what you're getting into instead of just trying to get good grades based on what your daughter does for you? I don't know, it just seems so backwards. If I was going to school to become a deacon or anything similar to that, you better believe I'm going to be working hard to make sure I'm refined for this job instead of just passing my classes, getting in the job, and then not knowing at all what I'm doing. That's not going to look good at all. People are going to know immediately that, hey, this guy probably cheated through school. And also, can't you get expelled for that kind of stuff? If it's anything like college or some kind of upper education, the second they find out that, oh, he's not doing any of his work, if he gets caught, that's going to put a really bad reputation on his record. And yeah, other schools are going to look at that and other employment opportunities are going to be like, yeah, let's pass this guy up because he's a cheater and he used his daughter. And that might even negatively affect the original poster too. I don't know. That just seems really sketchy. So I know if I was in your shoes, I would literally stop doing this and be like, no, I'm not doing your schoolwork for you. This is way too much. I'm drawing a line in the sand and I'm setting a boundary. Because I think at the bare minimum, this absolutely should be something that your dad takes care of and doesn't rely on you to actually do for him. Because at that point, you might as well be the one to sign up and become a deacon. So hopefully this all works out for you because honestly, this sounds incredibly obnoxious. Today I had one of the worst days of my life as I not only got scammed into helping someone move apartments, but I also nearly got robbed. Here's what happened. I want to start off by saying that sometimes I really hate the people of the state I'm born and raised in. I've got a truck, so I've been asked more than a few times since buying it to help friends and family move things. There's also a whole story involved in buying the truck about the previous owner's ex-wife, but I'm not going to go into details about that here. Anyway, last week, the cousin of a friend, someone I'd only been acquainted with twice, suddenly asked me for help with moving stuff out of his old apartment and into his new one. He was physically disabled and needed a cane to walk. The friend of a friend told me his cousin was disabled from a bad spine injury, literally around a decade prior, and had finally gotten into Section 8 apartments. They kind of played up the fact that he was disabled to get my help, so I reluctantly agreed. But then the guy was actually offended when I said I'd only help him if he paid me for my time and gas. And I seriously think he thought he could get help from me for free. But this was a guy that was a cousin to someone I'm not even close to, that was also friends with someone I'm barely close to. Some of my other friends called this guy a total Gary. I'm not sure if that's some new meme or an inside joke, and I don't really care either, but I will be using the name Gary just to make things easier. So I helped Gary to move after he agreed to pay me, but he acted completely butthurt when I refused to help unless he paid me in advance. I mean, I am not dumb. I could tell this guy would have tried to weasel out of paying me if I asked for the money afterwards. So he begrudgingly gave me $100 in cash for 2 trips of getting his stuff out of storage and into his new apartment. But he totally lied about the distance distance we would be driving. He said 20 miles, but when I put the address into the GPS, it was more like 35. I mean, I used most of what he paid me just to put gas in my truck because I had multiple trips of driving this guy's stuff 35 miles each way. And by the way, that was 140 miles total. And on top of that, I was doing most of the heavy lifting because Gary couldn't do any heavy lifting because of his bad back. The apartment I was helping get this stuff to was also on a 3rd floor and only accessible by stairs. So that was a lot of painful lifting. Once all the stuff was finally unloaded, Gary wanted me and the friend of a friend who introduced me to him to stick around and help him unpack and arrange everything. I tried to be nice about it, but he kept insisting and told me that I have to help him since I gouged him for cash. I then got mad and pointed out I helped him for several hours and I honestly barely know him. If anything, I undercharged him, especially since he lied about how far we were going. Plus, he clearly didn't even want to pay me to begin with. He would have had to pay several times more if he hired professional movers. Plus, he was constantly rude to me the entire time, and I heard him call me a redneck garbage collector when he thought I wasn't listening. Then I told him what my actual job and salary is, and that I'm never going to help him with anything ever again. Gary then got really red in the face and walked out while he called me names and said he never wanted to see me ever again. I then said back the feeling was pretty mutual, and now that he's so far away, I'm probably not going to be seeing him ever again anytime soon, which I am very thankful for. I've also told my other friends about this, and they all agree Gary was completely out of line, and the friend of a friend who put me up to all of that hasn't even messaged me to apologize. I was incredibly mad after leaving and decided I was gonna get some beer and just go home and get drunk. I stopped at a gas station, I got the beer, and then I noticed a taco truck down the street. So I parked at the taco truck, ordered the biggest overpriced burrito they had, and then sat in their waiting area. As I was sitting there, I noticed some random guy in a plaid shirt just casually stroll up to my truck, reach in through the window, and he literally snagged a 6-pack of my beer. And then after he did that, he just started to walk away casually with it. I then yelled at him to put the beer back right now. He stopped and looked at me like a deer in the headlights, then tried to act innocent and claimed that he was walking home with his beer. I remarked that I was the owner of the truck that he stole that beer out of, and I literally just watched him do it. I then said to put the beer back before I started to call the police. He then actually started complaining that it was just a 6-pack of beer and I could easily go buy another one, but I told him it didn't matter what it was. He was a thief and an entitled one at that, and to put the freaking beer back before I got mad. He then dropped the beer back on my seat from the window. He then gave me the middle finger all before leaving. Then someone nearby remarked that the thief was a local homeless addict who acts like that to everybody, and he had gotten his butt kicked a few times in similar incidents. Well, I went back and I immediately closed the windows and I locked the doors on my truck. I then got my burrito and I scarfed it down. And I really should have been more surprised to deal with 2 really entitled people in one day, but frankly, I'm just not anymore. Also, I will never be getting food from a place like that again because that burrito somehow wrecked my insides. And normally I can handle eating anything, but I was in and out of the bathroom all night, marking this day literally one of the worst things I've ever had to deal with in quite a while. Oh man, you had a really bad day. Like, there's no other way to put that, and I say that with as much sympathy as I can, but it really seemed like the universe on this day was like, okay, it's your turn. You get the blunt end of the stick and there's nothing you can do about that. And I'm so sorry you had to deal with that. Like, seriously, that really sucks. And I know what you mean by having to move someone that you don't know, because I've had to do that so many times. And you hit the nail on the head. It seems like when you have a truck, everyone's like, oh yeah, you're my best friend suddenly. And even this would be so far of a stretch, it's not even funny. Like, seriously, the only people I'm ever moving with anything I have are people that I know personally, not random strangers that I know from a friend of a friend. That's stupid and that's definitely not happening. So yeah, I think you win the award for having the worst day possible because this sounded like an absolute nightmare. An entitled Karen and her demon spawn freak out on me after her kid breaks one of our iPads that we use for our business at a bowling alley. Things got so bad that she literally got herself and her kid banned from the bowling tournament that was going on at the moment, resulting in one of the greatest forms of karma I've ever seen in my life. Here's what happened. So I work at a bowling alley and today we had a very large tournament, roughly 6 people on all 40 lanes. At the start of the day, it was nice and quiet until about 2 to 3 hours in. This kid, who was maybe 10 to 12 years old, that was sat directly in front of the front counter, had their iPad out and the iPad ran out of battery. Well, the kid lost it at this point, practically screaming at his mother to charge it or to play on her phone. But you know what? She clearly didn't care. She basically told him to sit down and shut up. Now, the kid only did about half of that as he started walking around the counter. He then noticed the iPad that we have behind the counter, which is something we use to help keep track of reservations and parties going on in the bowling alley. Well, when he saw our iPad, his face lit up like it was Christmas Christmas morning. Now, as I always do, when a kid runs behind the counter, I stop them and I say, "Whoa, little buddy, you can't be back here." The kid then looked at me, pointed at the iPad, and said, "But I want it." But I responded by saying, "Sorry, little dude, but that's our important iPad. I can't let you have it." The kid then said to me, "Oh, okay," and then walked away. Now me, thinking that was the end of it, I went back to doing my usual stuff for my job, especially when it comes to having like a tournament going on in our facility. Fast forward to maybe about 5 minutes later, and I see out of the corner of my eye, the kid sneaking around the side of the counter and reaching out to the iPad. Once again, I told him he can't have it this time, with a bit more of a strict tone to it to tell him that I'm serious. With me still looking at him, he reached out more and more until he grabbed it and ran away. Luckily though, he didn't get far. He ended up tripping over one of the many ball bags strewn across the floor behind the bowlers. However, and unfortunately, he landed on the tiled off eating area, smashing the tablet on the ground. Naturally, the kid started bawling and I rushed over to grab the iPad off the ground, only for some of the glass to fall out. Well, the mother was definitely not pleased about any of this. She looked beet red as she hurried over and shouted, "How could you hurt my little pumpkin?" I then explained the situation to her and how her child tripped and smashed the iPad, and she gave me the stereotypical response where she said to me, "My child is an angel and he could do no wrong." She then demanded that we pay her for a new iPad for her son. I then told her that's not how this works, and she started causing a scene. In fact, she was so loud that the tournament head came over noticing the commotion and asked what was going on, and obviously we both gave our sides of the story. He then said that since the damage happened during his tournament, he would reimburse us for the damaged iPad, but the mother, the son, and her bowler were all kicked out and the bowler was disqualified. And honestly, I feel bad for the bowler. I mean, he was doing pretty good in the tournament, but thanks to a crappy parent, it was all null and void. I talked with the official later on, and he said that she's been a problem at other places before for similar issues, and as such, she's always being too rowdy and not watching her kid. And apparently, she has been warned at their last tournament that if it happened again, her son would be disqualified from the tournament. And sure, I do feel bad about it, but honestly, oh well, because this entitled Karen and her demon spawn absolutely had it coming. Imagine being so entitled that you literally try to flip the script for something your stupid, idiotic 12-year-old kid actually did on their own. Like seriously, think about it for a second. This kid stole property that wasn't his, ran off with it, and then broke it on the ground, and then tried to cry wolf as if he got hurt somehow. And then the mom swoops in and says, "Oh, you're paying for this iPad." It's like, hey genius, not only is it not your iPad, but if anyone should have to pay for it, it should be her. And I totally get it. The tournament organizer's trying to be nice and trying to like bail you out or something like that. But seriously, that lady absolutely should have paid for that iPad. Those things are not cheap, and the fact that she just broke one, assuming it was hers, and then tried to be like, "Oh yeah, you're gonna pay me back for this." Like, I'm sure she was probably waiting for something like this to happen, because this just seems so immediate in my opinion. So good for you for being attentive and definitely putting your foot down, because this Karen and her stupid kid were completely out of line. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to AmITheJerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. I've been dealing with these annoying spam callers for so long that I finally snapped and decided to return the favor, as I called them back hundreds of times, forcing them to get it through their heads that I don't want to talk to them. Here's what happened. Okay, so I recently scam called my scam callers and it got them to finally stop. They were calling 10 to 15 times a day, each time spoofing a US-based location, and had the exact same voicemail, which has forced me to need to delete my entire voicemail inbox literally 3 times weekly for at least a year. And trust me, this is extremely frustrating. So many calls during work meetings, important moments with my friends, etc. Every single time, it's the same voice message. They would say something like, "This is Jennifer from the senior underwriting team calling about your loan." And after doing some research, I found a post about this specific scam, and in one comment, a guy claimed to have scam called them back, and it finally got them to stop. So I thought to myself, why not? Let's see if it works. I called, I put myself on mute, and I hung up after about 5 to 10 seconds of them talking. And I did this exactly 266 times in 35 minutes, each time to the same number, and I cycled through 20 to 30 employees with accents from Australia to India to mid-Atlantic, as well as at least 3 different company names they claim to be from, and many scripts. Sometimes they'd start one script, then mess up and start another one. Other times they'd just say hello, but the best one is when they would change mid-script what company they were claiming to be from. After about 150 calls, I started getting intermittently hung up on immediately after they answered the call, and I knew I was getting to them. Finally, at call 260, I reached the final boss. In a deep mob boss style voice, this guy said, and I kid you not, "Sir, you gotta stop with these spam calls. I mean, seriously, you gotta have something better to do with your time, right?" Now, this all happened Thursday, and you know what? I'm still riding the high to this day. Wow, it is so so ironic that the people who were scam calling you tried to literally be like, you're spamming our phone lines, you need to stop it. And it's like, okay, what about what you guys have been doing to me for so long? And the fact that they're leaving voicemails like that, in my opinion, is the worst part about it. They're flooding your inbox with useless crap, and they're seriously just bothering you for no reason. So good for you for getting some much needed revenge, because in my opinion, these people absolutely deserve it. Am I the jerk for kicking a homeless woman out of the hotel that I work at? As I really feel bad about doing this, and I'm not sure if I'm in the wrong. Here's what happened. Okay, so I work at a 5-star hotel, and more than a month ago, a woman came to the lobby at around 10 o'clock p.m. and asked if she could stay for a while inside. She was presentable and polite, so we agreed. At around 4 o'clock in the morning, she finally left, but the day afterwards, she came back with the same request, and again, we allowed her to stay and sleep for a while. That is, until she left at around 5 o'clock in the morning. This kept on repeating for the next days, and she started coming earlier, asking for food and drinks from the bar, and staying until later and asking for breakfast in the morning. We eventually got a warning from our supervisor saying that this cannot keep on happening, and the next day when she came again, which by the way, this has been going on for 3 weeks, we had to kick her out at around 2 o'clock in the morning. However, she just kept coming every single day. She has now been coming to the hotel every night for 5 weeks straight, where she has asked more than once if she could shower in one of the rooms, store her heavy bags which she carries every night, and even paid for a room which was more than $200 a night just for one of the nights. We have offered to help her several times, giving her recommendations for homeless shelters and the like, but she keeps on denying it. The reception team has even offered to get her a room at a cheap hotel, to which she says no, and she claims to have no friends or family that can help her out. The part I cannot understand is that she is always clean with clean clothing, she smells nice, and she's always polite. She often uses her MacBook and iPhone at the reception and has never disturbed anyone. I know from a logical point of view we can give her shelter and leftover food, but it's part of the hotel policy that no one can sleep in the lobby, not even any of the guests at the hotel. In the last few times we had to kick her out, she complains that no woman should be left alone in the streets at night, and it really makes me feel like a jerk to ask her to leave. So am I the jerk? Because right now I don't know what to do. Okay, no, you're definitely not the jerk. This is not your problem because literally you're just doing your job. This is not a homeless shelter. This is a place of business. This is a 5-star hotel that has standards. And so it makes perfect sense that your manager would be like, no, she can't sleep in the lobby. That's not good for business and I don't want that. So no, you're not the jerk in the slightest. I would not feel bad about this at all because there is options available for her that she can go to if she really is homeless. And for her to guilt trip you like that, in my opinion, is completely unacceptable. My entitled stepmother invited her family to my graduation parties, quite literally all without asking me first, ruining the entire event and forcing me to want to cancel altogether. And at this point, I don't know if I'm in the wrong because now I'm incredibly stressed out. Here's what happened. I'm a 23-year-old female and I'm graduating college in May, and I'm 5 months pregnant with my first child, which for the record, I'm having with my 26-year-old male partner. My mom passed away when I was young, so I was raised by my dad. We've always had a solid relationship, but things have often been strained by his wife, who we will call Mary, who got married to my dad when I was 13 years old. Now, Mary is okay, but we've had tension over the years due to her doing some shady things when I was younger and our completely opposite political and religious beliefs. Still, ever since becoming pregnant, I've made an effort to be warmer towards her. I truly believe she cares about my child, and as someone who grew up lacking that kind of support, I want my son to be surrounded by as much love as possible. Mary offered to plan my baby shower, and I was grateful. Between being pregnant, my final semester of my degree, and managing my high blood pressure, I just didn't have the energy to plan it myself. She's never had children, and this may be my only one, so I figured it's a kind gesture. But things started getting uncomfortable when she began pulling more and more of her own family into the planning. Then she suggested throwing 2 baby showers, one for my people, meeting my friends and my partner's family, and one for her people, which would be extended and deeply conservative and frankly difficult family members. Now that really rubbed me the wrong way, especially since my graduation party had already been canceled due to money concerns. But still, I just let that go, partly to avoid conflict, and mostly because free baby stuff is free baby stuff. So I shifted focus to a similar graduation party, a small dinner with a few close friends and family, no more than 12 people, including my partner's family who still haven't met my dad. But you know what? Mary took that over too, inviting 8 of her family members without asking, and that really felt like a slap in the face. Now for reference, her family has never embraced me. I have always felt judged, ignored, or out of place around them. Over the past 10 years, they've never once asked how school was going or shown any support. And now I'm expected to smile through dinner with people who have treated me like a stranger while I'm pregnant, as well as overwhelmed and just try to celebrate a huge milestone. It devastated me and I cried for days. And Mary doesn't take feedback well. She once canceled my Sweet 16 over an argument we had 4 months prior. I messaged her to say that dinner no longer felt like it was for me and that her guest list made it stressful, and let my people know that we'll do some separate gathering later. And to be honest, I'm still upset. It's not about just being mean. Her family can be unsafe. Her brother has mental health issues, has inappropriately touched my dog in front of everybody, including Mary, and you know what? She just laughed about it. I have 2 baby nieces and a child on the way. I will not risk having them around someone like that. If that causes drama, then honestly, so be it. So am I the jerk for being furious and canceling dinner? I know my pregnancy hormones are strong, but I feel like my boundaries are being trampled during what should be a joyful time in my life. What should I do? No, you're not the jerk at all. Mary sounds obnoxious and she sounds very controlling. And I think you trying to have like a baby shower with her, in my opinion, was like a last-ditch effort. It seems like this is you extending an olive branch for what has been a tumultuous upbringing. And once again, she has trampled all over that, and that is really not fair. It sucks that you have to deal with that, and I just don't blame you for being upset. So no, you're not the jerk. This really is supposed to be about you, and it's quite obvious that your stepmom is trying to make it about her. Am I the jerk for installing a lock on my bathroom door after my roommate started using it, despite the fact that we all agree that that bathroom is mine? Here's what happened. I'm a 26-year-old female, and I live with a 25 and 27-year-old male in a shared house that we rent. When we all first moved in here about 6 months ago, we all signed agreements on certain things. One of those things being that I will solely cover the cost of the water bill, but the spare bathroom in the house is mine. And this was all completely fine until about 2 weeks ago. My 27-year-old roommate, who I will call John for the sake of the story, recently started using my shower randomly out of the blue. I figured maybe they ran into each other and he needed a shower really quick for work, and I thought no biggie and that it wasn't that big of a deal. But this turned into John using my bathroom every single day, showering, going to the bathroom, shaving, and leaving hair everywhere, and honestly, I've had enough. So I cleaned the entire bathroom and I installed a lock on it with a key that only I have. After I did this, John sent a message to our group chat saying, and I quote, "Why is the bathroom locked? What is happening?" Now, in the days leading up to this, I spoke to my other roommate and he agreed with me that I should lock it and be done with it, and has zero issues with that one being mine per our agreement. When John first sent that message, I was just clocking into work, so I sent a quick, "Well, because I pay extra for that bathroom to be solely mine." And after that, I left my phone in my locker, and when I got on my break, I came back to a bunch of messages in our group chat with some of the highlights blowing my mind. He said stuff like, "No you do not. If I can't use the bathroom in our house, I might as well just move out." And he was essentially just throwing a fit about the entire thing. So seriously, am I the jerk for locking the door down? Because right now, I seriously don't know what to do. No, I don't think you're the jerk at all. Like, maybe you could have talked to John ahead of time and been like, "Hey, can you not use that bathroom?" And then remind him of the agreement that you guys had when you first moved in, because that might have been like a good solution to this problem. But from the sounds of it, it doesn't seem like John would have like responded to that at all. And if anything, it probably would have made things just a little bit worse. So I understand why you went from like cleaning it up to then locking it down and being like, "No, you're not going to use it." And if this guy really is like, "Oh, I'm not going to live here anymore if I can't use that bathroom," at that point I would be like, "Oh, okay, off you go then. Like, there's the door if you really want to leave." Because everybody agreed to this stipulation. This is your bathroom while you guys are living here, and if he doesn't like it, then yeah, he probably should leave. So no, you're not the jerk, because in my opinion, what you're enforcing with them is completely reasonable. Am I the jerk for telling my sister-in-law that I would leave my son's birthday party if she invited my husband's ex? Because this is seriously obnoxious, and at this point, I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, I really need an outside opinion because I seriously feel like I'm going crazy. My husband and I have been together for almost 10 years. He has a daughter from a previous relationship, and her mom left when she was little. She wanted to live life and signed over full custody. My stepdaughter and I have always had a great bond. She used to call me mama, would bake with me, play with my hair, help with everything around the house. And when my son was born, she was the most loving big sister. But for the past 6 to 8 months, things have changed. She started spending more time with her mom again, and slowly I became invisible. She stopped calling me mama, she got colder, more distant, and even corrected me in front of others. One day she said to me, "My real mom says only real moms get to decide things about me," and that really crushed me. Now, I didn't argue and I just said nothing. I figured she was growing up and processing a lot. Around the same time, my mother-in-law, who is married to my husband's brother, reconnected with his ex, my stepdaughter's mom. They were childhood friends, and suddenly the ex was showing up at family gatherings, as well as Sunday lunches and birthdays. The same woman the entire family used to trash for walking out is now welcome like nothing happened. And at first I stayed quiet, even though it really hurt. But then came my son's birthday. My sister-in-law was helping me plan the party, and during the conversation in my mother-in-law's kitchen, she casually said, "Oh, and your ex is bringing a little birthday gift for the birthday boy." And when she said this, I was stunned. I asked if she had invited her, and she said yes, because she's the mother of his sister. sister and part of the family. I then calmly told her, if she shows up, I will leave with my son. I am not comfortable with that. She then called me insecure and said that I was being childish and that she had been friends with my ex long before I entered the picture, that I'm just jealous because some woman can't handle their man's past. I walked away and I told my husband, and he understood how I felt, but he hates family drama and said he didn't want to take sides. Now, my sister-in-law is saying I'm ruining the party, I'm being selfish, and I'm trying to erase the mother of my stepdaughter. But this woman left her daughter behind. I stepped in when she was gone. I stayed up through every fever, every nightmare, every single birthday, and now she's re-entering like a hero while I'm pushed aside. What really broke me was when my stepdaughter said, my mom promised that she'd sing me happy birthday with me and my brother. She deserves to be there too. I feel like no matter what I do, I will always be a placeholder. So I really need to know, am I the jerk for saying I'd leave my own son's birthday party if my husband's ex came along? Because right now, I seriously don't know what to do. Okay, this is so stupid it's not even funny, because I can't believe your spouse is not taking your side. This is not a matter of family drama. This is a huge violation of privacy and a massive boundary that everybody's just conveniently ignoring. And that's not fair for you. You literally do not deserve that, and the fact that no one's taking this seriously says volumes about this family. So it's like, you mean to tell me they would willingly let this person back into all of their lives, even though this person has made everybody's lives miserable? And I understand people trying to forgive others and move on with their lives, but it's especially annoying when you're like, okay, but I haven't found any solace or any kind of like, I don't know, resolution about any of this. So no, you're not the jerk for not wanting her there, and for saying that you'll leave with your son all because she might be there in the first place, because that really sounds super toxic, and I don't blame you for being upset. Am I the jerk if I remove a bridesmaid from my wedding party when I'm their maid of honor? Because right now they've made me very uncomfortable, and at this point I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 32-year-old female, and I gathered my future bridesmaids the other day for wedding dress shopping. One of my bridesmaids, who we will call Cherry, was the second to arrive, and after giving her a formal "will you be my bridesmaid" gift, she made the comment of saying, well, we all know that I should be the maid of honor. This threw me off a bit because even prior to getting engaged, I've always been firm and clear with my friends that my BFF will be my maid of honor. What's more is that she said this in front of another bridesmaid bestie of mine who we will call Skylar. I stated that it's rude to say that, since my position on who would be my maid of honor has been firm for years longer than my friendship with Cherry. Cherry then quipped back that since I'm her maid of honor, it's only fair that she be mine, and then semi-sulked throughout the entire dress try-ons. Fast forward to the lunch, and it's now 3 of my bridesmaids and some family, and she asks loudly how much I'll be spending on my wedding. I state that it's a private matter between my fiance and I, and then she turns the conversation to her own wedding, which is, by the way, a year after mine, and how much money she's saved by buying used, how she's planning on spending $10,000, and that I should come to her for planning and advice. Now, I thank her and I reinforce again that my fiance and I will be planning our wedding based on our budget, as well as the venue and the vendor availabilities for our wedding. She then turns the conversations to bridesmaid outfits and colors, and as I'm doing a specific color scheme, I give her a color range to choose from. The dress choice is their own, as I want my bridesmaids to look and feel their best. Well, in front of everyone, she demanded that she have first choice of dress color and that she wanted someone else's palette range. At this point, I don't know what else to say, and she goes on to say that I'm her maid of honor and that she wouldn't do this to me, which, by the way, she has given me zero choice on anything. When I got home later that day with Skylar, she made a comment that she felt pretty uncomfortable with Cherry, and I also received a call from my maid of honor with some concerns over her interactions with Cherry and how it felt like Cherry wants to be the center of attention for literally everything wedding related on my end. And I honestly can't say that I don't disagree with their feelings and perspectives. In reality, and this makes me feel like a jerk, I don't want to have Cherry in my bridal party, as I have other close friends that I want to be there with me. However, I feel obligated, as she made me her maid of honor and has been vocal about being in my wedding party for a few years of my relationship. I'm preparing to have a heartfelt conversation with her about this and set the expectation that if she continues with this path of statements and attitude, then I will have to remove her from the wedding party. So am I the jerk if I do this? I live a very much go with the flow kind of lifestyle, and I'm approaching the wedding planning with my fiance in the same way, and it's making me anxious having these kinds of conversations and interactions and energy involved in the process. So at this point, I'm so confused because I don't know what to do. Okay, no, I do not think you're the jerk at all. Cherry sounds obnoxious, and it seems like this is all premeditated because she clearly wants to be the maid of honor and no one else should in her opinion. And that is stupid. That's really dumb, and I just don't think you should have to deal with that. I do think that if you kick her out as a bridesmaid, you will also probably have to step down as maid of honor, because I could never imagine that working, and honestly, from the sounds of it, it doesn't seem like working with Cherry would be a pleasant experience in the slightest. My entitled sister likes to make up stuff about our mother just to make herself look like the victim and to tarnish my mother's name. But after dealing with this for so long, I finally decided to put my foot down and demand that she either explain herself or she shut her mouth and keep our mom out of her mouth. Here's what happened. Okay, I want to start this off by saying that my sister was never mistreated. She just likes to think that she was, because playing the victim is all she does anymore. But in truth, she actually mistreated me, physically, verbally, emotionally, and one time she even made me lick her feet. Our mother clawed her way up from nothing. She went to college, got a great career, and did everything she could. But for my sister, it just wasn't enough. And my sister never grew out of her teenage mentality. She's 41 years old with a mind of a 16-year-old on some kind of substance. She invents new things in her own head and then convinces herself it actually happened. Now, my sister used to work at a small store and eatery, and it's thanks to her that we can't show our faces in there anymore. And it's a shame too, because they had some really good food there. Anyways, for a while, my sister had a part-time coworker. This girl was meek and clearly traumatized. My sister got it out of her just how crazy this poor girl's mother was. I can't recall any specific details, but there was clear mistreatment of all kinds. Emotional, mental, physical, I mean the works. One thing I do remember was that the poor girl forgot her lunch one day and called her mother for help. Well, her mother yelled at her over the phone, said some horrible things, and then dropped by with nothing more than a small yogurt for her and expected her to be extremely grateful for it. My sister recounted this stuff to me while at home and then reenacted her reaction to the girl's story, which was to over-dramatically act like she was on the verge of tears with her hand on her heart and say that she was having flashbacks of her own mother and the things that she did to her. I was clearly weirded out, but ended up letting it go to avoid more drama. But that same subject about her coworker got brought up later, and that time my sister started saying that our mother did the same stuff to her as her coworker's mother. And at this point, I finally had had enough, and I confronted my sister about all the made-up crap she was saying about our mother. I then asked her, when did all that stuff happen? Because I don't remember any of that. She just stood there staring for a second and then tried to play it off with a slight laugh, but I just didn't let it go. I said to her, no, seriously, when did that stuff happen? Because I don't remember any of that happening when we were kids. She just froze up and then walked away because she couldn't answer. She would probably totally deny this ever happening too, because she either would not remember or had enough time to mentally invent a retort. But that day she couldn't make up anything and she just walked off. In another post, I talked about how my sister didn't buy winter clothing for her kids in 2023, and I bought all of those clothes for them at a thrift store because it was all that I could afford. When I took my middle nephew out to buy clothing, we ended up talking about his mother, and I ranted many things about her to him, and he added some things from his side as well. And this kid is observant with a really level head, and currently has no denial about what kind of person his mother actually is. Then, after we were done shopping, his mother texted him, and during the text messages, my sister started making up stuff about our mother again, because that's her go-to thing to do when trying to keep people on her side. And right there over text messaging, my nephew used the same lies that I did. He literally said, well, when did that happen? I don't remember that happening. And then she just kind of stopped texting, like no response at all. I expected her to just need some time to make something up, but she didn't bother and didn't message him for the rest of the day. Thanks to my sister spreading rumors about our parents while she was living on the family property, my parents started getting the side eye from people, and we were getting recognized and treated like crap. Once we evicted my sister, that all finally stopped. Like, people just don't even seem to remember it anymore. My sister was going out of her way to poison the well for so long, but she can't do that anymore. And my stress has gone way down since we kicked her entitled butt out of here. Like, family drama just went to almost zero as soon as she was gone, and it's so much quieter here. I do miss my nephews though, but they're doing so much better since their dad took them away from my sister. Wow, your sister literally just does not sound like a good person, and I'm so sorry you have to deal with that. It really seems like she's making stuff up about your mom just so she can make herself the victim again for some dumb reason. And it's like, dude, what are you doing? That's so weird. That literally makes no sense, and I just don't know why you would do that. So yeah, I'm really glad you called your sister out on her garbage, because this kind of behavior, in my opinion, is absolutely unacceptable. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to AmITheJerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My entitled father-in-law is trying to control my wife and I with his money, and after dealing with this for so long, we finally decided that enough was enough and put our foot down to set some serious boundaries. Here's what happened. Okay, for a bit of background, my father-in-law left to go live in his home country when my wife was 10 years old. My mother-in-law got their marriage annulled 5 years before that after he literally cheated on her. He told my wife that he just couldn't make it in our country, and so he had to leave. Well, 3 years ago, my wife and I got married, and my father-in-law and his wife flew in for the the wedding. During a dinner with them before the wedding, my father-in-law told us that he wanted to give us $20,000 towards a down payment on a home and another $50,000 after we bought the home. And you know what? We graciously accepted, and we've never asked him for money or about his money. He wanted to be very involved in the process and wanted to go to all the viewings with us. Eventually, he brought us to this 50-year-old condo his friend was selling, and it needed to be totally renovated. He then pressured us into buying it, and we told him that we couldn't afford it even with his help because of all the renovations and the high condo fees. But even though we were explaining it, he simply couldn't understand where we were coming from. They eventually went back home, and he kept asking my wife when we were going to buy a place. At this point, I knew that he was just some typical old person who got lucky with his home appreciation and thinks that buying real estate means that you're going to get rich, no matter what. So he's super anxious about his daughter buying property. We were renting an apartment from family for well below market rent, and we're saving a lot of money. We were not in a rush to buy anything and triple our housing cost. Our careers were just starting to take off too, so we were focused on them. My father-in-law then blows up on my wife over text messaging and basically says I'm a moron for not wanting to buy his friend's rundown condo and fix it up. He also said that he thinks I might take his money and somehow invest it in stocks and cryptocurrency, all because I told him that I invest in index funds inside my company pension. It was a whole novel of ranting and capital letters, just utter nonsense. Keep in mind, I've been nothing but friendly and cordial with him. Now, I know he's financially illiterate and got lucky with an inheritance and some home appreciation, so he was able to retire in some kind of way. He's never invested in stocks because they are, according to him, too risky. And you know what? My wife just claps back at him with her own wall of text, and then we just leave it as it is. Fast forward to a year later, and he ends up buying his friend's condo himself with cash and says he's going to live here half the year just to be closer to my wife. And it's like, oh my gosh, here we go again. So he eventually fixes it all up and then goes back home. A month before he plans to come back with his wife, he blows up on my wife over text messaging again. He is constantly sending us real estate listings that we can't afford, telling us he knows the area and what we should buy, with no consideration for what we want. We just politely tell him that we will take them into consideration, but he blows up on us again. And this time, he actually sends me a wall of text along with my wife. He tells me, "You're not children. Why haven't you bought yet?" And now at this point, I'm pissed off because he's insulting me. I tell him to keep his opinions to himself and that this conversation is over. He then tells me that I'm mistreating him. He then sends a picture to my wife of his stepdaughter and her husband in front of a house they bought that same month in their country with some sentences that said, "This is what happens when you listen to your parents." He tells my wife they gave them money towards their down payment. My wife then goes and asks the stepdaughter if my father-in-law gave them money, and my stepdaughter says no and explains it was actually her in-laws, who are incredibly rich by the way, that gave them the money for the house. The stepdaughter then goes ballistic on my father-in-law for lying and for using her like that to insult us. And even my father-in-law's wife is now pissed at him too. My father-in-law and his wife fly here and just don't even contact us. Eventually, my father-in-law's wife reached out to my wife and basically says, "Hey there, we're here. Are you going to contact us?" And they didn't give any apology or anything like that. My wife goes to meet them and they say they just want to trust us and that we should basically expose all of our finances to them in order to build that trust. But my wife says no, we're setting boundaries. If you want to help us, we don't want it to feel like a transaction where we have to do whatever you want us to do. It's either a gift or it's not. They constantly come across as though they are entitled to know about how much money we're making and how much we have. I still don't understand their motivations, and I think it's all just about trying to control us, and I'm honestly not having any of it. Oh man, you hit the nail on the head. That is literally the only reason they want to know your finances, and that is completely unacceptable. Seriously, why the heck would they act like that? It seems like they only gave you that money because they want to control what you do. And I just can't get over the fact that they try to force you to buy that rundown condo and be like, okay, time to fix it up. And it's like, dude, I'm not doing that. You're insane. So good for you for putting your foot down because this situation is incredibly sketchy. And your father-in-law absolutely has a hidden agenda. Am I the jerk for not telling my friend that the supposedly volunteer gig we were going to sign up for is actually a paid gig that he flaked out on? Because right now he's framing this as if I set him up, when in reality, I knew just as much information as he did. Here's what happened. Okay, so me and my friend, who we will call Ryan, are both in engineering. Last month, our department posted a call for volunteers to help run logistics at a local tech conference. It sounded like a good networking opportunity, so I signed up, and I told Ryan about it too, but he was like, well, it's not worth the time unless they're paying me for it. And honestly, fair enough. I then show up the first day, and to my surprise, they hand me a badge, free food vouchers, and say that we'll be getting a small stipend at the end. And this is not anything big, but still $300 for 2 days is is not bad at all. Ryan then texts me while I'm there and is like, hey, how's it going? And I just say, it's not bad, it's pretty chill so far. I didn't mention the money because for starters, I didn't know how long I would be staying, and secondly, he already decided it wasn't worth it. Anyways, after the event, I got a stipend and I post a picture of the staff group on Instagram, and Ryan sees it and says, wait, you got paid? And I said to him, well, yeah, it ended up being paid after all. When I said this, he flips out. He says I was shady for not telling him, that he would have come if he knew, and that I knew that he needed the cash. He then told a few people that I set him up just to miss out on this event. But it's like, listen, he made his call. I didn't know it was paid either at first, and I never lied to him. So honestly, am I the jerk in this situation? Because I seriously don't know what to do. No, Ryan's an idiot. This guy literally made his decision, and that is not your problem. If this guy only wants to show up if he's getting paid and doesn't see the value in networking, then literally that is his fault and not yours. You clearly see this as a good thing, and he just can't understand that for some dumb reason. And for reference, both of them are 23 years old, so getting a good network going this early in your career is probably a really good thing. And if I was in their shoes, I would jump at the chance to have that. Like seriously, it's only a net positive and there's no reason not to go. So no, you're not the jerk, because at the end of the day, you are literally not responsible for your friend in the slightest. My idiotic doctor that I work with refuses to give me any orders to give medication to a patient severely in pain, resulting in one of the greatest verbal smackdowns that I've ever seen towards a doctor in my life. Here's what happened. So I used to work the night shift as a nurse, and one night many years ago, I received a patient on my unit from the emergency room. My patient was accompanied by his lovely wife, and when I introduced myself to them as being their nurse, I noticed immediately he was in severe pain. I reviewed his chart and his orders, and the doctor had not ordered any pain medications for him and just written to admit him to the unit. I called the doctor, who told me that he was not going to order anything until he reviewed the patient's chart and saw them. And honestly, I was so confused because he did see them in the emergency room, so why the delay? I tried to ask, but he insisted he would be up to the unit soon and then just hung up on me. I then apologized to the patient and the wife, relaying to them the doctor's message. Several minutes later, the doctor comes up and I ask him again for any pain medications I could give, as my patient was still having severe pain. Well, the doctor told me no, then proceeded to gather a bunch of charts, sitting at the nurse's station and just completely ignoring me. I went back to the patient's room again, apologized, and told them that the doctor was here, but was wanting to review charts first before making orders. The wife, I could tell, was becoming angry, as her poor husband was having severe pain with no relief. She then asked me where the doctor was, and you know what? I gladly escorted her to the nursing station. And then I told the doctor that the patient's wife wanted to talk to him. I remember her ripping into him about the wait, her husband's suffering, and his refusal to write any medication. He then immediately apologized and gave me orders for medications that could be given immediately. So yeah, sometimes having family members there who can yell at the doctors is honestly the best, because unfortunately, this is not something that I myself can do. Okay, that is honestly so disappointing, because you would think a doctor would be more proactive about their patient care. Like, that guy totally had his priorities mixed up, and that is completely unacceptable. This guy's sitting here in pain and you're like, I'm gonna look at charts first. I'm not doing anything until I review it. So yeah, this guy absolutely deserved to be yelled at, and I'm so glad that you brought the wife into the picture, because she really put him in his place in a way that he absolutely deserved. My husband is literally pooping his pants every single day and tries to claim and gaslight me into thinking that it's not a big deal. But right now I'm at my breaking point, as I feel like I'm going crazy dealing with this situation, and at this point I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, for a bit of background, I'm a 30-year-old female and he is 32 years old. My husband got promoted at work, but it's not a paid promotion and it's mostly just pro bono. Regardless though, he says that it could lead to a higher paying position. Anyways, he is tired all the time lately with all these extra duties at work. So he's been less consistent with his hygiene, and in fact, he's stopped showering as often. His diet is awful, so I think that is contributing to this issue as well. He won't touch a vegetable, he eats a lot of gas station food, and a lot of fast food. It used to be that he would have really bad gas, like curl your hair bad, open every window in the house, and wait outside for it to dissipate bad. Eventually, he started taking his pills for it, and that eventually helped. But lately, when I do the laundry, I have been noticing huge stains in his underwear, and it is so disgusting. It smells awful. Sometimes I can smell it when he walks around the house or sits on something, so I just stopped doing his laundry. I told him it was unacceptable and foul to walk around with so much poop on your underwear. I'm sorry, there's no other way to put it. I didn't feel comfortable sharing a bed, so he's been sleeping on the couch for 2 months. He doesn't care about showering. He doesn't seem to care about his smell. He tries to guilt me about not sleeping in the bed, but I told him it's his own fault. If he would just shower when he gets home, then all of this can be fixed. I tried to explain how unsanitary it is. I told him I'm lonely, and I'm not even being able to share a bed or a space with him. I offered to go to the doctor with him. I asked him if he was feeling depressed, and I even asked him if he would try therapy or counseling. I tried to get him to use a bidet, and I asked him if I could help with his paperwork at home so he could feel less burden at work. I literally threw out everything I could think of. But you know what? He just brushed me off, and he is insisting that I am overreacting and that it's normal for grown men to have some skid marks. He blames me for shutting him out, but I physically feel sick when I catch a whiff of him sometimes. The nail in the coffin was that he told me that sometimes when he farts, he presses his underwear against his butt cheek just to see if it feels wet. Yeah, it's that gross. And you know what? I told him that was it. I was so done. The line had been drawn and completely crossed. I told him that I don't see how we can ever be physically close again because I'm so disgusted by all of this. I mean, seriously, this is so childish. I can't even believe it's happening to me. I'm too embarrassed to tell a soul outside of my home about this, so that's why I'm venting it out here on the internet. I feel like this is not real life anymore, but I'm so lost over this. I truly care about him and I don't want to leave him. He is my husband. We have built a life together and I can tell he is struggling with something. But if he makes absolutely no effort to fix the issue, then guess what? It's going to be affecting the both of us. And it's honestly just not fair to me. How long am I supposed to sit by while this continues? I don't even want to go home half the time because of the smell as soon as I walk in the door. The worst part about it is him gaslighting me about it, saying I'm imagining things, that it doesn't smell as bad as I think it does, that I'm making it out to be a big deal when it's not. Normally, he is very receptive to my feelings, but lately he is just acting so defensive. We have been married 8 years, so it's crazy to me that things can change so suddenly, and it seems like he has stopped trying altogether. I have heard that depression can do this to people, but he doesn't seem to be in bad spirits at all, just more fatigued than usual. So seriously, I am absolutely at my wit's end because right now I really don't know what to do. Okay, this is unbelievably gross. Seriously, your husband is crapping his pants and doing nothing about it. And this is far beyond any kind of like random instance. I can understand some situation where you're like, okay, I think I need to like clean myself in the shower more or something like that. Like I think anybody could run into that, even at the bare minimum, but this is literally an everyday occurrence. I honestly can't even understand how he has a job anymore if he goes into like an office space, because I'm pretty sure, at least from the places I've worked in the past, having good hygiene is a must. You can't go in smelling like actual poop and expect to have a job at the end of the day. That is not how this works, and that's completely unacceptable. And you as his wife should not have to put up with this. This is seriously gross. I just cannot get over that. And you know what? This guy is completely out of his mind if he thinks this is not a big deal, because it is. He's a fully grown 32-year-old male. Either something's going on with like mental health problems, or he is completely just given up on this marriage. So truly, I am honestly so sorry you're dealing with this. This is horrifying, and I would not want to be in your shoes in the slightest. And for the sake of your happiness and not even your husband's, I really hope this gets worked out in one way or the other. Am I the jerk for yelling at my aunt after she kept pressuring me to marry her son? Here's what happened. Okay, to start things out, I'm a 24-year-old female, and for context, I'm from Pakistan. So where I'm from, getting married to your cousins are common, and my aunt keeps pressuring me to marry her son, who's 25 years old, ever since I was a teenager. This started in my teen years, and my aunt would start making jokes such as, "You would make such a good daughter-in-law," or stuff like, "You and my son would make a great couple." Now, I used to brush it off back then, and I would just ignore it, hoping it would stop, but they never did. Instead, it started being more common. She started doing it every time we met, and I've shut her down politely every single time, saying I'm not interested and it won't ever happen. My mom knew how much it bothered me, but she didn't want to disrespect her elders, so she kept quiet and only spoke about it in private when my aunt messaged her. My mom told me to keep quiet and ignore it because she won't let it happen. But you know what? This was very uncomfortable. The whole thing gave my cousin some wrong ideas because he started messaging me in private, saying things like,
"We're getting married in the future, so why aren't you talking to me now?"
And you know what? I would just ghost him and ignore his messages. Just a few years ago, I finally lost my temper at a family gathering after my aunt said, "You're all grown up now. When are you gonna marry him? Our decision is final." The strong feeling of just being grossed out and the cringe just made me lash out. I then yelled at my aunt, calling her stupid for not listening to me and not understanding what no means. I used mild swear words as well, and it was a whole heated argument. To end the argument, my brother had to physically carry me out of the house, where I had a breakdown and we all just left her house. My mom was hurt by this a lot, and I could feel the pain in her voice whenever we spoke about this. She said that she just wishes I handled it differently. Well, after this came a series of unwanted toxicity and drama. My aunt yelled at my mom, making her look like a terrible person, all for supposedly letting that happen, and cut off all ties. And she even influenced my mom's oldest sister and brother to do the same thing. Well, my cousin got married to somebody else, and we had to find out about it from somebody else. He got married and divorced just later that year, and somehow my aunt managed to partially blame me and my mom for that divorce, even though we played no part in it. My mom deals with her siblings often, and sometimes they drag her into dramas. I've seen her cry in her room alone because of this, and it makes me feel so bad. I feel like I should have done better or done things differently for the sake of my mom. All this toxicity and drama would have been avoided if I simply just did things differently, and at this point, I'm honestly not sure what to do. Okay, first off, you are not the jerk for setting your foot down, because this is insane. I understand there's a cultural difference here and cousins can get married, but even at the bare minimum, imagine if this was some like family friend, and from the time you were a teenager, they were constantly pushing them on you no matter what, trying desperately to arrange a marriage that you absolutely did not sign up for, and never listening to you when you said no. I think in that scenario, I would lose my mind if that was happening to me. I would be pissed off and not be okay with this. So no, overall, you are definitely not the jerk, because what your aunt did to you is completely unacceptable. My toxic friend finds out that my dad passed away and only called me to try and confirm that information instead of trying to reach out and give their condolences. So as a result, I decided to end our friendship because I literally could not stand the fact that she only called to try and gossip about my dead father. And at this point, I'm not sure if I made the right decision or if I'm justified for doing things the way that I did. Here's what happened. To start things out, a few months ago, my father passed away. I was on his bedside and it was at 5 o'clock in the morning. He has been battling an aggressive disease for a while, and his partner called me because his situation worsened overnight. I immediately drove home the night before, but he didn't make it to the morning. At the moment, all I wanted to do was cry and mourn and figure out what to do next. My parents are divorced and my mom was in another state, so it was left up to me to make the arrangements all while grieving at the same time. And of course, I called my mom to tell her the news. Unfortunately, without me knowing it, mom sends a message to their former co-workers about the news, and it's just general things to pray for me about. Both have been teachers and basketball coaches at high school that I went to, and the news spread like wildfire with social media. I obviously did not check social media at this crucial time, and I was literally waiting for people to pick up my father's body still in the early morning when a friend of mine started calling me. We were close before, and we were in the same group of friends that occasionally still met after high school, and for the sake of the story, let's call her Ella. Now, I didn't answer because I was waiting for the funeral arrangement calls, and I just didn't want to miss it. She tried calling over and over again, which really annoyed me, and it made me wonder how she knew about any of this. So I decided to block her number for a while. It was a long day of crying and making arrangements and then crying some more. When I finally got home that evening, I saw some messages pour in. Finally, I saw that our high school batch's group chat was activated, and I saw the chats and I was completely livid. It started with someone insinuating that my dad died, and the answers that followed were like, "Oh my god, I also heard that. Is that true?" Then Ella started chatting like she was my keeper. She said to them, "I'll confirm the news. I'll call them later on. Just wait for me." And people were like, "Well, what did they say?" And after a while, the old friend said, "She's not answering, so it's probably true." Now at that point, I stopped reading. I realized that this friend was calling me not because she was concerned, but because she wanted to break the hot news to our old high school batch. She did text me several hours afterwards to say her condolences, but the trust was already broken. At my lowest point and on my worst day, Ella pestered me with calls just so she can call dibs on the confirmation. So I ended the friendship right then and there. I unfollowed and removed her from my socials, blocked her everywhere, and did not invite her when meeting with our same group of friends for the said reason. So did I overreact in this situation? Because right now I'm not sure if I made the right choice. Okay, in my opinion, I think you made the right choice because this is so unacceptable. Because it literally shows that your friend did not care about your dad passing in the slightest. They really did just want to break the news to everybody else, and that's all they had on their mind. They wanted to be the one to tell everybody what's going on instead of reaching out and being like, "Hey, I'm so sorry for your loss," or something like that. So no, you're not the jerk, because honestly, I would have done the exact same thing. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to AmITheJerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My roommate didn't get invited to our friend's bachelor trip, and now I'm worried that I have to carry the burden of telling him exactly what's going on. Here's what happened. So my friend and I met each other when we joined the same fraternity in college, and ever since then we became roommates, and we've all been part of the same friend group. He is a great guy that would do anything for any of us, and I would do anything for him, but there is a kicker. He has always been the socially awkward friend in the group. He has trouble effectively joining in conversations, laughs the loudest at his own jokes, his mom still makes frozen dishes for him that he re-ups on once a month, tries to play the band Korn at parties, and then and gets mad when we take away his music privilege, and as much as I hate to say it, he is sort of the fringe and cringe friend in the group, and he's sort of there by association in a way. Recently, one of our friends sent up a group chat for a bachelor's trip to Ireland. A number of us guys are in the chat, except for my roommate and our other close friend that my roommate grew up with, and this friend sort of got him in the friend group. So basically, everyone got invited except for my roommate and his childhood best friend. I asked the groom why he didn't invite them, and he said he didn't want to deal with him for a whole week, and didn't want him to feel too left out, so he decided not to invite his other friend as well, while also stating that they're still invited to the wedding. Now, it sounds awful, but it's not my wedding, and I'm not gonna press it. I asked if he planned to say anything to them, and his response was to say, well, not really, but if they want to reach out, they can. So that leaves me with the potential burden of telling my roommate that he's not invited to Ireland, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Okay, this really sucks because this is not an ideal situation, because your friend is essentially making some rift in the friend group that is honestly not okay, and it's putting you between a rock and a hard place. But I think there's an important fact about this that you really need to remember, that being that no, you don't have to tell him anything. You have every right to defer this over to the person who didn't invite him and be like, hey, I don't know the details, you can ask this guy instead and he'll tell you why you're not invited. Because in my opinion, if he's going to be the one to exclude someone from the group, then he should be the one to explain why that's happening and not you. A former employee was so bad that she caused my entire company to adopt a new rule where we refuse to hire mean people, all literally based off of the fact that she was one of the worst employees I've ever had to deal with. Here's what happened. So my wife and I own a balloon decor company with 8 employees. We take pride in paying a living wage and creating jobs for people who might not fit in the traditional workforce. And as such, we've come up with one indefinite rule in hiring where we say to ourselves that we don't want any mean people. And someone we will call Erin was the reason we instituted this rule. For reference, she was rude to the other staff and sometimes the customers, and considered herself better than the rest of the sales team, but she also made frequent and sometimes costly errors. She would shift the blame when she could, or even downplay the errors when she couldn't. She had a steady stream of complaints to the boss, who is me, about her terrible coworkers, and a steady stream of complaints to her coworkers about her terrible boss. She loved snagging the high-value inquiries before anyone else, and then complained that we paid hourly rather than on commission. Our whole sales team, namely 3 people, had unrestricted access to QuickBooks, and it was built like that so that they could create invoices and bill clients. One day, my awesome sales manager told me that Erin had logged into the HR portion of QuickBooks and was quite literally looking at everybody else's paychecks. She wanted to know what the manager made so that she could argue for a raise. And by the way, it was a raise that she didn't deserve because she was barely holding onto her job at that point. Well, I just laughed because pay rates have never been a secret. The whole company's finances are an open book, and I feel that every one of our crew should be able to know our gross, net, material costs, wages, owner wages, debts, as well as anything else they might want to ask. And if she had asked me, I would have told her exactly what the sales manager made and what she needed to get a raise. But somehow she thought she could gain an advantage by being sneaky. The next day, I asked my bookkeeper to print out employees' pay rate, and I taped the printout to the whiteboard for everyone to see, and only Erin knew why it had suddenly appeared, and she was pissed off. A few weeks later, she was gone from the company, and I wrote up a who are we document for the whiteboard that every new employee will definitely see. It promises wage and financial transparency and is only one sentence capitalized: no mean people. Because trust me, I don't need another Erin in my office. Oh man, Erin sounds like an idiot. Seriously, she went out of her way to literally axe her own job. Like, does she really think she would be able to sneak into the QuickBooks and be like, oh yeah, now I know the actual secrets. Now I know what everybody's getting paid. This is go time for me. It's like, dude, you've got to know that your job is like on the line, right? You're not only complaining to the boss, but also to the employees that you're complaining to the boss about, and vice versa. Like, what are you doing? And for me, that's a big red flag the second someone's coming to me so willingly and being like, oh yeah, I've got so many complaints about this place, because you know for a fact they're going to be doing the exact same thing to you. So yeah, this whole situation is incredibly annoying, and honestly, I'm so glad you have that rule, because I would not want to work with mean people either. Am I the jerk for not opening the door to unannounced family members after they came to my house knowing that I didn't want them dropping by? Here's what happened. Okay, so where I'm from, people visit each other without any previous communication. The host then has to stop everything that they're doing and receive them, specifically if they are from the family. Now, I believe it's disrespectful to visit someone without justification or without a previous agreement. I know it's the culture of the country, but for me, it's like the visitor is saying, I know you have nothing better to do, so just drop it all and attend to me, disregarding any work or chore I may be doing. I've made it clear to my family that I'm strict with this, and even if I'm just watching a movie, playing video games, or looking at my cat, if if you don't take the consideration of notifying me in advance, it doesn't matter if you're a few blocks away, coming from a different country, or from Mars. If you didn't text or call me in preparation to your arrival, you will be left outside and the doors will be shut. Well, a few days ago, my mother told me a cousin of mine came from a very faraway country and he was going to my house in 2 days. Well, I warned her I wouldn't be able to receive them because I would be working. And for reference, I work from home. Plus, I didn't wish to dedicate any time to them because my cousin didn't give me the dignity of knowing he was coming to the country beforehand. I mean, I didn't even know he had been around for like a week. I told my mother, do not come. I will not open the door. I'm really sorry, but no. Well, long story short, they came to my door anyways, and I saw my mother and my father and cousin in the security camera, and I heard them calling me. So I let them sit there under the sun for half an hour until they gave up and finally left. It is incredibly important for me that my word is respected. If I said don't come to my house, my wishes need to be respected or you will be left outside. I love my family and friends, but they need to respect me. This whole I show up first and I tell you later culture is way beneath me. So seriously, am I the jerk for enforcing this personal rule? Because at this point, I'm not sure if I made the wrong choice. No, you're not the jerk for one sole reason alone. You told your mom ahead of time you don't want this and she completely ignored it. And that, in my opinion, is the entire reason why this is messed up. Because you know what? I'm right there with you. I don't like people dropping in unannounced. I would much rather have them tell me they're coming so I can be prepared for them instead of them showing up out of nowhere and being like, okay, here I am, drop what you're doing and take care of me. Like, no, that's super obnoxious. And in my opinion, I think your mom and the rest of your family were completely out of line. Would I be the jerk if I refused to give up a water fountain that the previous homeowners abandoned 4 years ago? Because right now they're demanding that I hand it over. And at this point, I'm not sure what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, in September of 2021, we purchased a home that was built in 2019 and we moved in immediately. And the previous owners left a few things at the home, including a water fountain. Within the first month, the previous owner asked if they could collect the water fountain, and we said that was fine, but they never showed up. It's now March or April of 2025, literally 4 years later, and it's been sitting in our front yard ever since then. Over the last 2 years, I've been organizing, prepping, and designing my front garden where it will be incorporated into my design. I'm an avid gardener and I decided to redo the garden, but haven't yet planted anything, and it has taken me a while to actually get started for multiple reasons. The first year we were settling in, and the second year I had to learn about the seasons here in Florida, research native plants and the best planting times, amongst other things that had to go along with that. The most important reasons was because the house was built poorly and we had to repair an entire wall that was in the main section of the garden. So there's no point in me planting anything when we will be doing construction work. But after we finished the exterior part of the wall, winter started. The roof still needs repairs, but I have access to the area now. I planned on power washing, repairing, and planting the water fountain this weekend, but I got COVID and got delayed again. So I dismantled the fountain and relocated it to various places to be worked on. Well, suddenly the previous owner messaged my husband stating that he wants the water fountain back. It's his 45th anniversary soon, and it was his wife's 35th anniversary present, stating that he'll be by this weekend to get it. I told my husband to inform the previous owner that I'm no longer willing to part with it. Well, the previous owner states that it's not mine to part with, and he'll be by to pick it up. But it has been on our property for 4 years, and it's considered abandoned property after 30 days. We literally gave him the chance to pick it up, but they didn't do it. We are not a storage unit. I mean, what claim does he possibly have to come and get it? I understand that it was an anniversary gift, but clearly he didn't care enough to get it in the last 4 years. The house was brand new, but terribly built by the previous owner. Everything that could have been wrong is wrong. The roof is missing edge pieces. Subfloor is uneven, causing the entire floor to be uneven with gaps in all of the wood. The entire house needs new siding because they installed the hardy board incorrectly and it's now falling off. There's 4 different colors and textures of caulk used in the backsplash of the kitchen. Screws were popping out of every single wall in the house, and the studs aren't even 16 inches on the center. And trust me, the list goes on and on. We literally have to rebuild the house from the bottom up. And before you ask, yes, we had an inspector, but no, he didn't catch any of these things. We're also trapped in the house because we bought it during a time when the interest rates were very low. So moving isn't an option. And trust me, we would if we could. So seriously, am I the jerk for not giving up the water fountain literally 4 years after he sold us a terribly built house? Because right now I don't know what to do. No, you're not the jerk at all. This honestly is insane. You mean to tell me after 4 years, this guy's suddenly like, hey, by the way, I haven't talked to you in almost half a decade, but now I'm gonna come and get that stupid fountain out of your way. Sorry about that. It's like, no, dude, you're not getting it. This is mine now. You abandoned it, and we are not a storage facility, so good luck with that. And that honestly is the case. I can't imagine ever handing that over to that guy because the way he's acting is super entitled and you have no reason to hand it over if you don't want to. An entitled Karen causes an accident, literally all because she couldn't wait in line because she was too impatient. So I decided to get my own petty revenge as someone who has dealt with this same thing several times by offering to the guy who got hit by this Karen all of my information so that they could nail this Karen for the idiot driver that she truly is. Here's what happened. Okay, so I have to make a left turn at an intersection where the line to make that turn backs up at least half a mile every workday. It's about a 15-minute wait when it's bad and about 10 minutes in normal traffic. A lot of people skip that line and cut off drivers who wait patiently to turn, and it gets hazardous when those same idiots literally force their way into the turn lane regardless of another vehicle already existing in that space. Early last week, some idiot literally just shouldered my car out of the way. They saw me, they heard my horn, they kept merging, and I thankfully avoided that accident and carried along with my day, although I was incredibly irritated. 3 days later, the same idiot tries the same thing on the truck behind me. A woman in a mid-size sedan decided that she was getting in the left turn lane no matter what. Unfortunately for her, the lane she was merging into was already occupied by a full-size pickup, and she probably could have realized that if she looked where she was going, but she didn't. She hit the truck and of course it damaged her car. Nothing major, it honestly just knocked off her mirror. Now I watched the whole thing because that truck was directly behind me. Her head never turned, she was looking straight ahead as she collided with that truck. Something about her body language and the fact that she pulled out her phone to record the truck after the accident that she literally caused told me that she was a Karen, and I just knew she was going to lie her butt off to avoid any kind of fault. Well, this is where my tiny bit of petty revenge comes into play. I gave the truck driver my cell phone number, told him I saw all of it, and I offered to share my observations with the cops or insurance company. This was not the same car that almost hit me earlier in the week, but it was the same entitled BS attitude. The truck driver's insurance called me the next day, and I told them exactly what I saw. It was enough information to exonerate the truck driver and put the fault on that idiot Karen who definitely hit him. I don't know what happened after the call, and I honestly just don't really care, because I ended up getting my petty revenge against one of those idiot drivers. Man, I know exactly what you're feeling right now because I've had that exact scenario happen to me. You're in a turning lane, you're trying to figure your crap out, and lo and behold, these people come out of nowhere and just cut right in front of you and ignore all traffic laws in front of them. It's like, dude, what are you doing? You're gonna get somebody hurt and you're gonna get in an accident. And then my rates are gonna go up for my car insurance, and it's like, dude, are you kidding me right now? That is so annoying. So good for you for doing the right thing and saying that you will be available to help this guy out, because what that lady did was completely unacceptable and she deserved to get punished. Am I the jerk for having cops at my dad's house, all while I move out and try to get my things? Because recently he's been acting very unhinged, and at this point I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, to start things out, my dad has never liked my significant other and literally can't give me a reason why. 3 days ago, he kicked me, my 8-month-old daughter, and my husband out after an altercation between my dad and husband. 2 days prior to this, my dad threatened my husband for something I did and assumed my husband did not hear his threats. Then 2 days later, he makes one of his awful remarks at my husband, and literally at that moment, everything just breaks loose. Now, things did not get physical, but they were about to before I stepped in between them. My husband then threatened my dad, and then we got kicked out. Now, 9 months ago, just before I gave birth, my dad begged us to move from another state and live with him. He wanted us to have time to save some money and get our bearings as new parents. But I was reluctant knowing my dad, and just how abrasive he is, and didn't think it was a good idea. He insisted things would be fine, and we decided to give it a chance, knowing how helpful it would be to not have rent literally looming over us as we welcomed our new daughter into the world. Ever since we arrived, my dad has been nothing but rude to my husband. Without diving deep into the details, this has left my husband feeling extremely uncomfortable and walking on eggshells to keep the peace. At 6 months postpartum, my husband agreed to quit working and instead let me go back to work, which I really wanted. He was going to stay at home with the baby, and after a few months, he would move closer to his parents, who are retired and would help us with childcare. That way, we can both work and it can kind of work out. About a month ago, we let my dad know we'd be moving out and relocating 2 hours north where my in-laws live. And this caused a really big argument between my dad and myself, where he called me names and told me it was my fault he would have to sell his house. And keep in mind, we haven't been paying rent, despite every attempt every month we've been there to give him money. Ever since then, tensions have been growing. My dad has always made quite a bit of noise when my daughter has been sleeping, and she is not a great sleeper as it is. And we're up every 2 hours with her all night since birth. Needless to say, my husband and I are exhausted, and we are over him waking her up. 5 days ago at 6 o'clock in the morning, he is in the kitchen slamming cabinets shut and woke the baby up. I start work at 6 in the morning, and usually my husband will take care of all the baby's needs while I'm working, even though I'm home. The baby is quite particular at this age and wants me to do the soothing, so I had my husband move my mouse in the office while I put her to asleep. But the noise continued, and I hit my breaking point and slammed the door. Well, this set my dad off, and he was screaming threats towards my husband, assuming that he slammed the door. When my husband heard these threats, he wanted to leave immediately. After fighting with him all day to bide our time and stick to the plan for moving, he agreed he wouldn't say or do anything towards my dad, and we were just gonna leave in peace. Well, that is until 2 days later, when my dad made an awful comment at my husband, and my husband just unglued. My dad expected me to leave my husband then and there for disrespecting him in his house. Because I told him that was out of the question and stated that he made threats first, he made me and my daughter leave as well. He gave me 45 minutes to collect my things and leave. And you know what? We just left. Today, I let him know that we would be by Saturday to get the rest of our things, and also asked if we could leave for a couple of hours so that conflicts didn't continue. He told me he wouldn't let me get my stuff with my husband's help, as apparently he was not welcome back in the house. Then he told me that because I won't leave him, it was my fault that we would no longer have a relationship, and he wouldn't have a relationship with my daughter. I told him that I would be there on Saturday with a police officer, and I will collect whatever I can in the 15 to 30 minutes that I have. Keep in mind, my husband is a very kind and gentle man. He has never been awful towards me, never made me question his loyalty, and until a few days ago, has never been disrespectful towards my family. I mean, seriously, I've never even seen him be physical or aggressive towards anyone until then. I'm very hurt with my husband for going against what he promised me and haven't shared much words with him in a few days. However, I understand there's only so much one can take before they lose it. Regardless, his actions did lead to this. That being said, I'm having a hard time forgiving my dad for literally kicking me out like that, especially with an 8-month-old baby, and for him making threats to begin with, and ultimately for the cruel things he's saying and doing to me. So am I the jerk for wanting to have a cop there when I get my stuff? Because right now I don't know what to do. No, you're not the jerk at all, and honestly, I think you're making the right choice. Your dad is being completely unhinged and it's not fair. Like seriously, he's being really rude and he's treating you and your husband like garbage. So I know if I was in your shoes, I would do the same thing because the way he's acting is super toxic. My narcissistic boss constantly puts me down by saying that she's smarter than me while also placing herself on a pedestal that truly was incredibly fragile. So I decided to get some revenge by not only tricking her into not doing her job, but doing it in such a way where she couldn't argue that I wasn't doing exactly as she told me. Here's what happened. Okay, so about 20 years ago, I used to work as an office assistant at a small company where we would receive orders from clients, and then we would assign the work to one of our freelancers who were well compensated and respectable professionals. My boss was such a professional herself, and when possible, we would assign that work to her as well. I accepted the minimum wage job because she told me that I could sometimes get tasks assigned as a freelancer with a nice freelancer compensation, and that she would personally train me, stating that in less than a year, I would most likely be promoted to a regular freelancer and make very good money. So this sounded like a great career path in my young and naive ears. One of the things she had told me in the very beginning was that when you take over an order, you become like a project manager for that order. You need to make sure that the freelancer would finish the work on time, as the work was usually time sensitive. Additionally, she loved going on long lectures about how she is paying me for me to use my brain and figure things out when necessary. These lectures were mainly a vehicle for her to stroke her own ego by explaining to her employees how our brains were not as smart as hers. One day, our biggest corporate client had placed a large order that was due on a Monday by noon, and we had assigned the task to my boss to do over the weekend. It was Monday morning and the time was ticking, and my boss had not arrived at the office yet, and the client had called to see if we were going to provide the work soon as it was urgent. I tried calling my boss, who didn't pick up her mobile, and I called half an hour later and I even texted her, but still I got no answer or reply while noon was also fastly approaching. So I called her landline at home. Her husband picked up, told me she wasn't at home, and I explained very briefly why I was trying to get a hold of her. Well, less than an hour before noon, my boss called furious that I had been so insistent on getting a hold of her and that I had created a stage of stress and emergency at her house. She said her home number was for emergencies only, and this apparently wasn't an emergency. She said to me, "It's not professional to call people when they are not at work." She then told me she got everything under control and she was now sending the work to the client directly. Well, when she arrived at the office, she gave me a big scolding in person and told me that I do need to hound other freelancers, but not her. It was her business and she got everything handled. She knew all of the clients and they were clients because of her. She then looked me in the eye and told me, "If I take over a task, it's not your task anymore, it's mine. You do not need to bother me with reminders. You just give me the instructions from the client and I'll handle everything myself. From that point on, your job is done. I never ever miss my deadlines. If the client calls, you tell them I'm on it and you don't call me or text me about it. And you know what? Fair enough. But it was here that I decided to get my revenge. I then apologized for the stress and repeated the new instructions back to her for confirmation, and she was very happy with that and confirmed that I understood everything. She once more gave me her favorite lecture about how she is paying me to use my brain, with a lot of condescending examples of how she is always using her brain unlike us normal workers. And all I could do was nod along, as if her narcissistic rant was actually teaching anybody anything. Well, about a month or so later, another client came in with another order. So I accepted it, and my boss was available to handle it, so I forwarded everything to her, and I considered my work in regard to that order done as instructed. On the day of the deadline, I was on vacation and was hiking in a remote area with spotty cell coverage. Well, the other office assistant called me and told me that the client had called the office to check if the work was ready. I then just told my colleague that our boss was on it and that we didn't need to worry as our boss was going to handle it, and that my clear instructions were to tell the client that our boss was personally on it. The task would be done by the deadline, and that I was explicitly told not to call our boss to remind her of the deadline. Then, since I was on vacation, I needed to conserve my battery, and everything at the office was handled, so I switched off my phone. An approaching deadline that my boss had to meet was explicitly not an emergency. Also, I had recently realized that my boss had knowingly misled me about the career opportunities that this job was affording me, so I wasn't going to be on call on my rare days off. While I was hiking without a care in the world, my boss had managed to forget about the deadline. By the time she realized she had missed it, the office was closed. My boss had urgently finished the work, but it turned out she didn't know the client so well as she didn't have their contact details. As the order was in the office and my phone was off, she had to go there herself, fetch it, and use the contact details to deliver the work late. This was particularly embarrassing as my colleague had informed the client our boss was personally doing the work for them. Well, when I came back to work, it was absolute pandemonium. She screamed at me, but I simply pointed out that everything I had done was following her instructions. She would say stuff like, "Why did you do this?" But I told her, "Well, you told me to." And any other counter argument she brought up, I would literally just re-explain what she told me. Well, she was fuming, but she knew I was correct, and I had acted exactly as instructed. She also screamed at me for my phone being off, but I said I needed to conserve my battery for emergencies, and this was clearly not an emergency, and I'm not on call while on vacation anyways. Now, you might be thinking that this is a win for me, right? Well, narcissists never accept blame, and she had an idea of how to shift the blame to me after all. She said to me, "But you didn't provide me with the client's contact details with the order assignment. How could I have delivered them the work? It was your fault for not providing me with all the information." I then pointed out that she told me she knew all the clients personally, but if she had just used her brain like she is constantly telling us to, she could have easily noticed that the order instructions were on the client's letterhead with all their contact details spelled out, and it's literally on every single page, mind you, on the top and bottom of it. Now that was a huge slap to her fragile ego, and remembering her face in that moment still makes me smile. Needless to say, I was fired, but of course I didn't mind, because that job sucked and I truly didn't want to work there in the first place. Wow, that lady is an idiot. She seriously still found some kind of way of blaming this on you, even though you literally did nothing wrong. Because let's think about it for a second. You followed her instructions exactly. You repeated it back to her, and still it wasn't good enough. And the original poster is right. Narcissists like this will never accept any responsibility, and that's not fair for you in the slightest. So sure, you got fired from that job, but honestly, I think you could do way better than that, because this lady sounds like an absolute piece of work. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for refusing to drive if my wife is in the car? Because she is one of the most obnoxious people on planet Earth to deal with when I'm driving. Here's what happened. Okay, so for years after we got married, I could never figure out why I would be so angry and moody anytime my wife and I went somewhere. But then it finally clicked. I was only in a bad mood if I drove with my wife. My wife is the absolute worst backseat driver I've ever seen. It doesn't matter how I drive. She still finds things to complain about. She'll say stuff like, "Why did you go this way? If you'd gone that way, we would be there by now." She'll complain about me driving too fast or driving too slow. She'll say that I could have made a light or that the light was red and I blew right through it. She'll say that I slammed my brakes way too hard, that there are 17 great parking spots and I had to choose spot number 18, which is apparently the worst. She'll say that I turned my blinker on too late or that I turned my blinker on too early, while also complaining about me accelerating so slowly, while then complaining that I'm accelerating way too quickly. And this is literally just scratching the surface. So for the past couple of years, I have refused to drive. I now make her do all the driving, and lo and behold, I'm no longer a grumpy person when we travel. She has now gotten upset that she now is always driving and told me that I need to at least split it 50-50 with her. I told her that if she could just keep her opinions to herself while I was driving, then I absolutely would, and she agreed. So last weekend I started driving, and she couldn't even last 3 minutes without criticizing my driving. I then pulled over and I told her I'm done. Either she takes over driving or we're going home. Eventually, she took the wheel, which is right as she muttered that I drive like a moron, even though there's only one of us who has any tickets and has at-fault accidents on their record, and that person is not me. So seriously, am I the jerk for refusing to drive if she's present? Because right now I don't know what to do. I don't blame you for a second, and no, you are not the jerk. Your wife needs to chill out. Seriously, if you're gonna split it 50-50, then she needs to do what you're doing. You're not sitting there criticizing everything she's doing. You're not micromanaging her expectations. So why on earth is she doing that to you? It sounds incredibly frustrating and very annoying to deal with. And honestly, I don't blame you for getting upset in the slightest. Am I the jerk for refusing to give up my bedroom for my niece and nephew? All because my parents demand it since my sister is now living with us after her divorce. But after I said no, everybody's now treating me really differently and the entire house is very tense. And at this point, I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so I'm a 19-year-old female and I still live at home with my parents while I attend college. I pay for my own tuition and contribute to the household expenses when I can, but since my school is local, living at home saves me a ton of money. Recently, my older 27-year-old sister and her 2 kids, ages 5 and 3, moved back in after her divorce. She is struggling financially, and my parents are letting her stay here rent-free until she gets back on her feet. And I get that it's a tough situation, so I've been helping out with the kids when I can. Well, the issue is that my parents want me to give up my bedroom so that my sister's kids can have their own space. We have a small house and my sister's already taking the guest bedroom, so the kids are currently sleeping with her. But my parents think that it would be better for them to get their own room and are now asking me to move to the couch or make do by squeezing into their office space. But you know what? I said no. I've lived here my whole life and this is still my home and I need my own space, especially since I have a heavy college workload. I don't see why I should have to be the one to sacrifice my room when this situation isn't my fault. Well, my sister's upset, saying that her kids are uncomfortable, and my parents are disappointed in me for not being more understanding. And now the whole house is tense and I'm wondering if I'm being selfish. So seriously, am I the jerk here? Because right now I'm incredibly annoyed. No, I don't think you're the jerk at all. It is completely unreasonable for them to expect you to literally uproot your entire life just so the 3-year-old and the 5-year-old can have a place to stay in, which by the way, they can easily stay in that room with your older sister. This is not a permanent situation for her, as I'm willing to imagine that they're probably looking for an apartment of some kind. Like they can't possibly be thinking they're gonna live here forever, right? So no, if I was in your shoes, I would do the exact same thing because what they're asking of you, in my opinion, is completely unreasonable. Am I the jerk for telling a coworker to stop brown-nosing and sucking up by going to a funeral for a man that he literally didn't know just so he can look good in front of the higher-ups? Here's what happened. Okay, so last week, a long-retired former coworker passed away, and this is someone who was very popular and well-known in our company. I've worked with him in a close team setup for several years and was really sad when I learned that he passed away. Next week is his funeral, and me and some of my other coworkers who worked with him wanted to attend the funeral. But this is where the biggest issue comes into play. We have one coworker who has severe fear of missing out and is kind of a brown-noser to the higher-ups. He only knows about the deceased man from the stories that we tell about him. And he met him only once at a company function where they talked for like 5 minutes in a group setting. This guy is now running around the company and tells everybody how tragic the death is and how affected he is by this. Also, when I told my boss that I needed PTO to attend the funeral, I was told that it would not be possible as at least one team member has to be present in the company, and said coworker had already asked for PTO so that he could attend the funeral. When I asked him if we could switch, he told me no, we would not be able to because he wants to join the funeral as it would be a good thing to join and management will sure appreciate it. Well, that's where I lost it, and I told him to stop brown-nosing and making the death of a coworker that he didn't know all about him. Since then, he complained to our boss that I was rude to him, but most of our coworkers are on my side. So seriously, am I the jerk here? Because honestly, I don't know what to do. No, you're not the jerk at all. This really is super stupid. This guy doesn't even know the guy that passed away. He's only doing it because he wants to look good, and that literally is not a good enough reason to take off work. Like, you actually knew the guy, and now you're getting denied PTO all because this guy wants to go. So no, you're not the jerk for calling him out, because I know if I was in your shoes, I would have done the exact same thing. My girlfriend has monthly mental breakdowns and panic attack episodes that quite literally reverts her back to being a 3-year-old, where she is screaming and crying in a way that is truly not okay. And now I'm wondering if this is actually someone I would have spent the rest of my life with, because at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So my girlfriend and I have been dating for 2.5 years now. We matched online and I totally fell for her. This has been my longest relationship ever, and just 3 weeks after we started dating, we took a road trip to go camping, and that's when I genuinely started falling in love with her. Only a few weeks after that, we started exchanging I love yous. She's been able to put up with my annoying quirks and I with hers. We enjoy so much of the same things, but also enjoy our own things as well. We love traveling and we've been all over together, and it's honestly the most fun exploring and experiencing new things with her. She's always open to try new things and experience new food and all this other stuff, and it's nearly everything I've dreamed of in a relationship, besides maybe 30% of it. The other part that is totally weighing me down as I approach whether I want to spend the rest of my life with her or not is that sometimes once a month, sometimes more, she has a total and complete meltdown, just totally non-functional. I've never seen another adult human cry like this, and we're not talking like ugly crying, but a 3-year-old temper tantrum level crying. And the first time it happened, I nearly broke up with her, but I have way too much patience and I just let it keep going. I weighed all the positives, and dealing with the one breakdown a month seemed worth it. Now, for some context, my mother growing up would also have monthly breakdowns. Although hers were slightly different, she would just get really angry. Plates were thrown across the room, smashed into the floor, there was yelling, and she would say she's gonna leave, and I just have many vivid memories of my dad begging my mom to stay, where he would apologize and grovel for her to stay. And these images are burned into my brain to this day, which is ultimately what led to their divorce. My dad couldn't take it anymore and started cheating and kicked my mom out. Well, every time these happen with my girlfriend, it just triggers all those feelings I have as a child, of being frightened, fearing my mom would leave me, etc. But I bite my tongue, I hold her, I comfort her, and I try to calm her down. And these go on for 3 to 12 hours at a time. I can't leave her alone because then she tries hurting herself, and if I try to do anything other than comfort her, it pushes her further into her spiral. She claims she's self-aware during these episodes, but she acts like she's reverted to a 3-year-old child. She is aware that this is a problem, and she gets angry with herself for letting it happen, even though I reassure her that I understand. I've tried to do research and help her figure it out, but she gets extremely angry when I put on my doctor hat, so I've supported her in trying to figure it out. She's been seeing a therapist weekly, sees a psychiatrist, has been seen by doctors, where she also did 6 months of therapeutic ketamine, and so on and so forth. But nothing has improved, and it's only gotten worse, with one of the recent episodes forcing me to nearly call 911 as she was driving at the time, where she then pulled over her car and started to run away with no coat in the middle of winter. And yeah, it's once a month like clockwork. My mother recently made the realization as she started to go through menopause, and her doctor diagnosed her with PCOS and severe PMDD, and that explains her major freakouts once a month, because now she's extremely calm. Even just 10 years ago, she would call me telling me about her plan to end it all, and now she's just totally normal, and she's expressed that it's probably the same for her. So all I'm thinking about is this: will this be my life if I choose to marry her? Can I put up with monthly breakdowns? I'm totally stuck because I do love her, but I really don't know what to do at this point. What should I do? Okay, in my opinion, if you did want to leave her, you are well within your rights. I totally understand that you love her and you do want to be there for her, but if this is too much for you, then you have every right to step away. That doesn't make you a bad person, it just means that you literally are not a good fit for her. And sure, she's having breakdowns where she's becoming a 3-year-old child, and yeah, it definitely sounds like she needs a doctor or some kind of medical intervention. And I think you're going about this in the right way, where you're like, okay, do I really want to put up with this for the rest of my life? Because I can confidently say, in my opinion, if I was in your shoes, no, I would not be able to do this. I would not be cut out to deal with this kind of outburst every single month like clockwork, and I definitely would not be able to dedicate 12 hours of my day just to make sure she doesn't hurt herself. At that point, it's time to get in a hospital of some kind, because that is not normal. And I don't say that to be insensitive, but seriously, let's think about this for a second. She's clearly going through some mental health crisis, and I guarantee you there's way better things that you can do to help her out than just holding her for 12 hours and being like, yeah, I'm gonna be there for you, which in and of itself is not a bad thing to do. But I really think there's better options here that someone who's actually qualified for this can help her out with. So no, you would not be the bad guy if you did walk away from this relationship, because I know if I was in your shoes, I don't think I would ever be able to put up with this. My super religious parents don't know that I'm gonna be moving out and living with my boyfriend, and because of their religious choice, I honestly am so worried they're gonna judge me harshly and possibly reject me entirely, making me feel incredibly worried and very concerned. Here's what happened. So my boyfriend and I have been dating since June of 2024 and made our relationship official in August. So far, we have a very loving and healthy relationship with great communication. We both see this as a long-term commitment and are marriage-minded, so we actively work on a relationship and don't let small issues break us apart. Although my boyfriend has his own place, he has essentially been living with with me since November while still paying his own bills from afar. My name is the only one on my lease, and I don't receive any financial support from my parents. I have a stable job and so does he. And since we both work from home, we spend almost all of our time together. Recently, we applied for a new apartment together and got approved. We're set to move in at the end of April, and this is an exciting step for us, but I'm struggling with how to tell my parents. My parents are very religious and have strict beliefs about relationships. We can't spend quality time together before marriage, if you know what I mean. We can't have any sleepovers. There's no living together before marriage, and ideally, I should be with someone who shares those same values. Now, I don't agree with all of their views, especially regarding living together before marriage. I believe it's a smart decision because it allows me to see how my partner operates daily and ensures that we are truly compatible before making a lifelong commitment. Up until now, I have never told my parents when I spent the night with a boyfriend, let alone that my current boyfriend has been staying with me for months. I know that revealing our new living situation will disappoint them and it may cause strain in our relationship. However, I've spent my entire life trying to please them, hiding parts of me that don't align with their beliefs, and it has made me very miserable. And you know what? I don't want to keep living like that. I want to be honest about my choices and have them accept me even if they don't agree. So for those who have been in similar situations or have any advice on me finally putting my foot down on my independence, how should I handle this in a respectful but firm way? Because right now, I seriously don't know what to do. Okay, in my opinion, first and foremost, I think you need to take a step back and realize that you are an adult now. For reference, the original poster here is 23 and their boyfriend is 24. So seriously, if you wanted to live with your boyfriend, you absolutely have every right to, regardless of what your parents think. Like, that really is something you can do and it really will be okay. In terms of how to talk about it, honestly, that's between you and your parents. You know them way better than anybody possibly could, so you know how they're gonna react, and from the sounds of it, they're probably gonna be disappointed pretty much no matter what. It doesn't really sound like you're gonna win them over anytime soon, and there may be a chance that they just don't accept what you're doing and they're like, wow, this is wrong. Even though I think that you have every right to move in with your boyfriend if you want to. So I think if I was in your shoes, I would be as open and honest as possible while still trying to carve some kind of connection with them still, because from the sounds of it, they seem really strict, but it doesn't sound like they're the type of people who would cut you off all of a sudden, all because you're doing something they don't completely agree with. So yeah, hopefully this all works out in some kind of way, because this really does sound like a tricky situation, and it totally makes sense as to why you would be hesitant about having this conversation with your parents in this way. My idiotic entitled boss demands that I train my replacement, which just so happens to be his nephew, as he plans on firing me in 6 months. So I decide to get some revenge by literally not training this guy at all, resulting in this nephew nearly burning down the hotel that I help manage. Here's what happened. Okay, so my first job out of high school was doing the landscaping for a posh hotel near my hometown. I loved the job and the work was often demanding but rewarding nonetheless. After working there for a few years, the hotel was sold to a businessman as the owner wanted to retire to Florida. The new owner had a gambling addiction and a drinking problem. He constantly drained funds from his businesses to support his vices, which really showed in how quickly the hotel went from posh to the literal definition of a roach motel. I continued doing my job faithfully despite the rapid downturn in overall appearance. My paychecks were still nice, and I didn't feel as many effects of the downtown as other departments. About 6 months into the new ownership, the owner introduces me to his nephew and says that he wants me to train him to do my job so that I don't have to spend all day doing the landscaping for the property. Well, the nephew at the time seemed more concerned with playing Pokemon on his Game Boy than working, and even when I set him to a simple task, like raking leaves or watering flowers, I would often find him playing his Game Boy somewhere, or sitting in the lounge drinking with his uncle. I constantly complained about him to the owner, and I told him that I had enough seniority in my position to search for and train a more suitable person to do the job. That's when the owner dropped the bombshell. His nephew was going to replace me in 6 months. He was only paying his nephew minimum wage, whereas I was getting nearly 3 times as much because of my seniority and how much the original owner loved me. At this point, I realized that I was too expensive for him and he wanted to have more money available for his habits. I then immediately started looking for a new job. I continued working at the hotel, but I didn't put much effort into it. I showed the lazy nephew some basic stuff, but I pretty much left him to his own devices for the rest of the day. By the time I was asked to leave, the amount of neglect was overwhelmingly apparent. Poison ivy was growing around the entrances, and the normally well-manicured lawns looked like overgrown meadows. 6 months after I left, there was a massive fire in the middle garden because the nephew somehow thought the most effective way to get rid of the poison ivy and the weeds in the mulch was to douse it in gasoline and light it aflame. He was stood nearby with a garden hose to put it out, but was swiftly overwhelmed as dry leaves and other material quickly spread the flames into the hotel itself. The fire department was called, the hotel was evacuated, and the nephew was arrested for arson despite tried to convince everyone that he fully intended to put the fire out with a garden hose after he got the desired effect. The owner was forced to sell the hotel and restaurant on the property to a franchise. He was eventually audited by the IRS and arrested for tax fraud. Today, the property is bustling again. The restaurant was bought by a Mexican restaurant franchise and does decent business. The 2 side blocks of rooms that were damaged in the fire were torn down and turned into an outdoor banquet area for the Mexican restaurant. The main hotel has bounced back after this idiot owner was replaced, and the entire property barely resembles what it looked like when I worked there. But with all things considered, this guy deserves it because he was a nightmare to work for. I love the story so much because, like, seriously, anytime someone's gonna be like, yeah, you need to train your replacement, that's the second I'm gonna look for another job and not do anything else until then. Seriously, that was a stupid move by the owner because he literally gave this guy a license to say, okay, I'm gonna find another job and show you the bare minimum. And from the sounds of it, the nephew's a complete moron. This guy used gasoline and fire to get rid of the weeds. And I'm sure there's someone out there who can probably do that safely, but this guy did not know what he was doing. This nephew's a complete idiot. The fact that the fire didn't spread further is like a miracle in and of itself. So truly, good for you for getting revenge in a roundabout way, because this guy's an idiot for saying he's gonna replace you. And the fact that he went to jail for tax fraud is hilarious in my opinion, because it shows exactly the kind of person that you were working for.
If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories.
An entitled jerk parked next to me kept hitting their car door into my car, so I decided to return the favor by waiting until they left and doing the exact same thing on the other side of their car. Here's what happened. Okay, so I was parked in a student parking structure and I was stuck on a phone call before heading out. There was an SUV that pulled in next to me, and for a few minutes, one of the girls had her door open while she was looking through the back seat. Well, the door kept banging into my car, and I look over and I see that she wasn't paying attention. When all was said and done, her other friend came out of the other side of the car, and they both ended up leaving. Now, I noticed the friend pointing out that her door was hitting my car, and that's when she looked and saw me sitting in the car. I shook my head at her after seeing that she was chuckling at the situation, but I didn't say anything because I was still on the phone. Now, they were long gone by the time I finished my call, so I pulled my car to park on the other side of her car, and then I proceeded to slam my door into hers repeatedly, all the way until some dents started caving in. Now, my car's super old, so it's no biggie, but just because it's old doesn't mean people should be careless jerks about it. Anyways, it went fine, and I felt a lot better about the situation overall. Oh man, I think the fact that she laughed at you after knowing that you were in the car, like that would have set me off, and I can't say I wouldn't do the exact same thing that you did. So good for you for getting this revenge, because honestly, it sounded like these people absolutely deserved it. My entitled sister didn't buy winter clothing for her kids, forcing me and my family to step up so that they wouldn't freeze. Here's what happened. Okay, just to preface, my ex-brother-in-law did take the kids away from my sister. She is a narcissist, a master manipulator, and probably would have had no problem lying in court to get her way, were it not for the potential evidence against her being so overwhelmingly bad. Her ex took the kids and didn't bring them back once he was positive that she couldn't do anything about it, and soon the court gave him majority custody. My sister only gets to see her kids about 2 days a month and on some holidays. Now, this particular incident goes back to the winter of 2023, before my sister was evicted from the family property. At that time, her boyfriend had recently died in a car accident that quite possibly wasn't an accident. Technically, she had just broken up with a guy because he had cheated on her, and repeatedly cried to me that she's not a cheater herself, which is an outright lie, as she had 3 affairs that we know of while still married to her ex-husband. And how she still thinks this, I honestly just don't know. But by that time, she was barely home 2 nights a week. My parents and I were the only ones taking care of and paying to feed her kids because she wasn't coming home to feed them. She would call her kids and ask them what they wanted for dinner, and then wouldn't even show up. Our mother then got mad at her and over text message told her that she was abandoning her children. And my sister's verbatim answer back was to say, "Oh my gosh, no I didn't." She never grew out of her teenage mentality. Even after having 3 kids and her husband joining the military to better support them, she was still acting like a teenager. My mother and I got in touch with my ex-brother-in-law to tell him everything, because my sister had her kids so brainwashed that they didn't tell him much until he made them tell him everything. And any good clothing my nephews had, they would only keep at their father's house because they didn't want them torn up by the dogs or smelling like dog feces. I then found out my nephews had no winter clothing at my sister's trailer because my nephew woke me up on an early November in the morning to ask for a ride to school because he had missed the bus. And he was at my door in 39 degrees shivering in nothing but a t-shirt and shorts, and his shoes were falling apart. I asked him where his coat was, and he said that he didn't have one anymore. While I was driving him to school, I told him I was going to buy him a coat. And he literally said to me, "Well, I'm not that cold." But I said to him, dude, I'm looking at you shivering right now. I mean, his shoes were so bad, he could barely walk in them. He had to do this limp forward moonwalk shuffle because the bottoms of his shoes were coming apart. I superglued them back together that night, and the next day I went out and I bought him a coat at a thrift store, and he was wearing it to school right away. Then on the weekend, I took him out clothing shopping and practically bought him a whole new wardrobe. He didn't even have decent socks. He was having to use his socks from his brothers and even his mother. I bought him socks, then I took him to a certain thrift store with great prices, and I bought him a pair of good black sneakers, 2 or 3 long sleeve shirts, 2 sweatshirts, 3 pairs of pants, because he had nothing but summer shorts, while also buying him a pair of gloves and a knit cap. We rushed everything into the washing machine, and he was wearing that stuff to school that Monday. The following weekend, I took my middle nephew out and bought him some new socks too, as well as about the same amount of thrift store clothing. He even still wears the green hoodie I got for him back then. I bought him several pairs of pants, several shirts and sweatshirts, and a big thick coat, which he really liked. And he was wearing that stuff as soon as possible. The only thing he didn't need was shoes. I'm on a fixed income, and this was not very long before Thanksgiving and Christmas, but I spent about $200 on clothing for those kids because they needed it. My eldest nephew was already living with his dad full time, so he was fine. I also lent my youngest nephew a timber range camping cot just so he would have a decent bed. His tiny room in the trailer had a couch bed previously, but moisture and dogs just destroyed it. I also bought the kid a sleeping bag because he wasn't sleeping well due to the cot being cold on the underside. I ended up getting blankets and pillows for both of those kids, and after my sister was evicted, we cleaned out the trailer and found out that she had not only had a brand new sleeping bag in storage, but she also had a hoard of unused blankets hidden under her bed. And my god, we were so mad at her. She let the kids be cold when she had that stuff the whole time. The summer of 2023, all 3 of my nephews were allowed to live around the yard in tents, which they found preferable to living in the trailer with their mom, her boyfriend, and the stinky dogs. I ran power cords from my house to all 3 of their tents, and I got all 3 of those kids fans and ice coolers, and lent 2 of them camping cots to sleep on. I also let the eldest stay in my camper trailer from time to time. When telling people this stuff, the first words out of their mouths are usually to say, well, you're a good uncle. Meanwhile, my sister was busy drinking, partying, and doing all kinds of substances, and fighting with her piece of garbage boyfriend, and making trouble for all of us. We worked in secret with my ex-brother-in-law to make sure those kids were safe, and he ended up taking them that December. Then he took my sister back to court, and before anyone points it out, my parents and I were very remorseful for not taking action sooner, but my sister had us all mentally beat down. She's a chronic manipulator that makes up stuff and then spreads lies. She had people all over the area believing the stuff she said about our parents. My parents couldn't go to the local restaurant without getting side glances from people. But after we kicked out my sister, all of that stopped. She was poisoning everyone against our parents. So it's crazy how she wonders why we had enough of her and literally want nothing to do with her in the slightest. Wow, she really was a terrible mom, and I'm so glad those kids are away from her. Seriously, who in their right mind would be like, yeah, let me let my kids go cold this winter? That's a good idea. By the way, all these blankets are mine. It's like, dude, what are you doing? You are an awful parent. Like, you don't deserve to have kids. So good for you and your family for stepping up, because this sounds like a nightmare. And hopefully you don't have to deal with her in that capacity ever again. An entitled pastor that I used to work for made fun of a disabled girl who was checking us out for our groceries, causing me to lose all respect for them in a way that I truly never expected. Here's what happened. Back in the 90s, I took a summer job at a church that my grandparents attended, and my family would occasionally attend as well. I was 16 years old at the time, and I did consider becoming a pastor after high school. The church I worked at was run by a husband and wife pastor team. Both seemed nice and welcoming and would answer a lot of my questions regarding college divinity programs, degrees, internships, etc. This couple had replaced the founding pastors who had passed away 5 or 6 years before. The founding pastor had a house built next to the church for pastor housing, and yes, this will come into play later on. Like many other churches, they hosted a once-a-week vacation Bible school. After the second day of Bible school, the female pastor saw that some of the snacks and beverage supplies were running low, so she asked me to go with her to the grocery store to resupply. Now, the grocery store we went to was known to hire adults with intellectual disabilities as baggers, so the female pastor and I got what was needed and got in line. It was a busy day, and there were 2 customers ahead of us in line. The bagger, who had an intellectual disability, was chatting with customers and the cashier. She had a speech impediment, and the female pastor laughed at how she was talking and turned to me and said, "Those people shouldn't be working here and are just a nuisance." Well, at that moment, I lost all respect for the female pastor. I didn't say anything, and yes, I really regret it. The rest of the vacation Bible school went well, and I worked 2 more weeks, and then summer break was done. By the next summer, I took a job at a local hardware and lumber store. The owner, who's a guy with a daughter with Down syndrome, would give discounts to churches, homeless shelters, and other nonprofits. Well, the husband and wife pastor had contacted the store regarding lumber and other materials to rebuild a bathroom in the pastor's house. The store owner knew that I had previously worked at that church, as I had listed them as a reference. The store owner mentions that the couple would be coming in later to look at pricing for materials, and the store owner's daughter would sometimes help out at the store or just hang out. So I make the decision. I tell the store owner about the female pastor's awful comments about the grocery store employee from a year before, and trust me, he wasn't happy. He said he would still do business with them, but he would not be giving them a discount. And you know what? I always took pleasure in knowing that the female pastor's awful attitude prevented her from getting a discount. Wow, you would imagine someone who calls themselves a pastor, like, you know, a religious leader for a faith, would have some semblance of like love and compassion for everybody regardless of if they're different or not. Like seriously, why would they say something like that and be like, oh, they're such a nuisance? It's like, no, hypocrites like you are a nuisance. So good for you for speaking up and saying something about this, because those people suck and they absolutely do not deserve to ever get a discount. Am I the jerk for telling my brother-in-law to stop picking on my kids or he's not coming on vacation? Because right now I'm worried that I may have caused some weird drama in the family, and at this point I am seriously not sure what to do. Here's what happened. To start things off, I have 3 kids. I have a 16-year-old son that we will call Rob, a 14-year-old daughter who we will call Lisa, and a 9-year-old daughter who we will call Anne. Lisa is autistic and her special interest is Taylor Swift, and Rob and Anne just go along with it and indulge her. They're good kids who care and support each other, and yes, Rob and Anne also get attention and support for their interests too. Now, my brother-in-law, who we will call Hector, literally has a personality where he's always trying to rile people up. You know, the whole thing where they're like, oh, it's just a joke, bro. Like super childish, but whatever, he's family, right? Except my husband is out of the country, so I guess he thinks that he gets to do whatever he wants. A few weeks ago, he started needling at Lisa by making fun of Taylor Swift, using lots of childish name-calling words, intentionally using the wrong word for fans and stuff, and just really immature kid stuff. Lisa knows that not everyone likes Taylor Swift, and some people even hate her. In fact, one of her best friends hates her. She's not unable to hear different opinions. She has her own, and I'm sure she would love to share them with you if you had 4 hours to spare. He would say, well, Swifters do all these awful things. And she would respond by saying, Uncle Hector, it's Swifties. And he would just say it again to needle her some more. Now, I was not in the room when this happened, but Rob was. Rob said to him, why do you keep using the wrong word? She told you the right word. Hector then said he can say whatever he wants and that they should just cry about it. Rob then said to him, it seems like you're going out of your way just to upset Lisa. Rob eventually asked her to finish what she was talking about and just to ignore Hector. And this is when I came into the room and Hector waved at the kids and said, Roberta's getting real mad that someone's joking about mother. Now, I wasn't in the room, so I didn't hear the comment about me, and Rob said that I wouldn't get it. Before I could say anything, Rob said, bro, did you really just call me a girl's name? What are you, like 12 years old? I then put my hands up and I said, okay, enough. Hector, just stop. He said I'm raising soft kids who can't take a joke, but then I said that he's being so rude and that he wouldn't be acting like this if my husband was home. I said if he wants to still go with us to Colorado in the summer, you know, like we're planning to do, then he has to stop now or he's not coming. Well, this is what set him off, and he said I had no right to do that, even though yes, I absolutely do, and that I'm being a controlling yak over Taylor Swift. I said, no, I don't care about Taylor Swift. This is about you being mean to your niece because her dad isn't home. He said, well, F you and good luck next time you have a problem. You're on your own. He then took his Costco chicken and left, and I swear he must have immediately gone running to my mother-in-law because she called me to ask for what really happened and just sighed a lot. I asked her if I was overreacting, and she said she hopes that we can work it out because that trip was all that he had to look forward to since he was laid off from work. I hate causing drama in the family, so am I the jerk and out of line for what I said? Because seriously, I don't know what to do. Okay, you need to take a step back and realize that you did not cause this drama. Hector is literally the reason any of this went wrong, and no one can convince me otherwise. Like seriously, this is so annoying. He starts all this drama and treats everybody like crap. He acts super childish and is just really obnoxious all the time, and then has the audacity to be like, oh my god, wait a second. There are consequences for my actions? What do you mean? If this was me, there's no way he would ever go to Colorado with my family, and I would tell him, listen, you're gonna have to like stay home. This is not gonna work out. Because Rob has it 100% correct. He was only acting that way to try and get a rise out of Lisa, and the fact that he was doing that is so toxic. There's no reason for that. Like literally, leave the kid alone. She's a 14-year-old girl. She's allowed to like Taylor Swift for God's sakes. So in my opinion, no, you're definitely not the jerk, but also I think your brother-in-law has no right to ever go to Colorado with you guys, because his behavior, both past and present, in my opinion, is absolutely unacceptable, and that is not something that you should put up with in the slightest. My girlfriend told me she went to dinner with a male coworker, ended up getting hammered, and slept at his house, and now I'm at a point where I'm not sure if I need to talk to her about this or if there's other options that might be available. Here's what happened. Okay, so me and my girlfriend have been together for about a year and a half, and things have been pretty great. And for reference, we've lived together for about a year as she moved to my state after some long distance. Now, to start things out, we've had our issues recently, and these issues have been putting stress on the relationship. Recently, she got a new job and decided to take a break between jobs and go home and visit family and workmates that lived about an hour from her home. Her main reason for going into the city was to see her coworker, who's another female, that she wanted to stay with for a night or two. She also mentioned another male coworker wanted to take her out for dinner and celebrate her leaving the company. Now, I didn't have much time to react and ask her about it, as it was kind of just brushed off, even though I didn't think much of it as I did trust her. The day she left the city from her hometown where she was staying was also the night she was supposed to be going out for dinner with a male coworker. She went radio silent from the time she left for the city. I texted her at 2:00 p.m. just asking her how the drive was, and I got no response. Another message was sent at 9 o'clock with no response, and another at 11:30, and eventually I just fell asleep. Now, in the morning, I was expecting a message, but still, I didn't get anything. And by the way, this is a woman who has hounded me in the past for not texting and checking up on her enough. Anyways, I texted her at midday, and she said she had just woke up, she had a wild night, she did substances and had alcohol, which is pretty rare for her these days, and had been throwing up all morning. Now, I was quite annoyed and worried that I hadn't received any update from her until now, and told her I would call her after work to talk about her night. Well, after that message, I did something that I am a little ashamed of. I turned on her cell phone that she didn't wipe and tracked her location. She was not in the hotel, but outside the city, a little in the suburbs. I then opened up her messages to this coworker and found messages between the two of them. He told her to come to his place and start drinking there, and then go out to some bars later. The messages seemed very innocent and not something I'd even consider flirting. I checked her location throughout the day, and she never left until I messaged her below. I then messaged her after work, and she told me that she went to a hospital as she had been vomiting all day and snapped me some proof. I then called her after she recovered slightly, and I talked to her about her night. But she really just fast forward through the story and was upfront about everything. Told me she went to his house for drinks at around 4, where he then invited another girl over to party with them. They went out to bars, did some substances, and they all ended up back at his place, where she told me she passed out in his bed at 4 o'clock, while the other two continued to party until 6 o'clock in the morning. She even told me that he slept on the couch, even though I didn't ask. What bugs me about this is when I asked her when she got back to the hotel, knowing she's been at his place recovering all day until about 5 o'clock p.m. before she got to the hospital, she told me she got back at the hotel at midday and took an Uber to the hospital, although he most likely just took her there. There's not much else to the story, and she hasn't really elaborated on the night out, besides the fact that they danced and played games at his house, all with other friends that she didn't know. So at this point, I'm not sure how to approach this situation. Do I start questioning and raising my concerns about how she went out drinking with a coworker and then slept at his place after a night out when she told me it was just dinner? Or do I also call her out on her lies and tell her I know where she was? I will end with this. My girlfriend is a very sociable person and generally keeps relationships with her ex-boyfriends, which I have no issue with. But I honestly found this situation a little concerning, and at this point, I don't know what to do. Oh man, I don't blame you at all for being really freaked out by this, because honestly, this sounds really sketchy. So no, you would not be in the wrong for trying to talk to your girlfriend about this, because what you're describing, in my opinion, sounds incredibly weird. My girlfriend told me that her family was in a serious accident, but when I checked up on them, absolutely nothing seemed to be wrong, and they all seemed to be completely fine. And now I'm convinced that my girlfriend lied to me for no reason the entire time. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 22-year-old male, and I've been in a relationship with my girlfriend who's 23 for about 3 years and 8 months now. For most of that time, we've had a strong and healthy relationship. We've supported each other, communicated well, and spent a lot of time together. Recently, I started a new job, so I've been a bit busier, but we still make time to meet every day, talk on video calls, and stay close. Earlier in our relationship, she told me she had a heart condition related to her vagus nerve. It never really affected our day-to-day lives, but I've always tried to be understanding and supportive whenever it came up. About a month ago, she mentioned feeling unwell, and she said her heart was racing, but afterwards she seemed fine and life went on. Things started to shift about a week ago when she told me and some of our mutual friends that both her father and grandfather had been in a serious road accident. According to her, they live in a mountainous rural area and had to be taken to a hospital 4 hours away. She even said that one ambulance got stuck in a landslide. Her father was reported to have developed blood clots, and her grandfather was in critical condition, eventually being transferred to the largest hospital in our state. Throughout all of this, she stayed at our shared flat, saying she was managing everything through phone calls. Then she told us that her grandfather had flatlined at the hospital but was revived. And later, she said her father was being moved to the same hospital in critical condition. The next night, she claimed her father's ambulance had been in another accident and had to be redirected back to the regional hospital. And this is when I started noticing inconsistencies. She was telling us that she had been in constant contact with her family, her mother, brother, and doctors, but when I saw a missed call from her flatmate and briefly checked her call log, there were no signs of her calling or receiving calls from them. This really confused me because I had heard her supposedly talking to them in the room. I didn't want to jump to conclusions or accuse her of anything, so my friend and I decided to call her family directly, just out of concern more than anything else. Well, wouldn't you guess it? Her father answered and sounded completely normal. He said that no one had been in any accident or hospitalized. He also called her brother and he confirmed the same thing. But even after this, the following day, she told us her father had flatlined and was revived 20 minutes later. I'm at a complete loss right now. I care deeply about her and I want to believe there's an explanation, but at the same time, I'm feeling confused, hurt, and unsure of how to process everything I've been told. I also worry that this could be a sign of something deeper going on emotionally or mentally. So here's my question. How do I bring this up with her in a way that's honest but gentle? I don't want to accuse or corner her, but I do need to talk about what I've learned and how I'm feeling. Has anyone been in a similar situation, or has any advice for how to approach this with care? What should I do? Oh man, this is super sketchy. Seriously, this is a big red flag in my opinion, and I would not ignore this. You mean to tell me your girlfriend has been lying about her father and grandfather nearly dying over and over again, and is not at all explaining what's actually happening? Like, good lord, that's so weird. There's no excuse for that. Like, even her looking for attention is a weird excuse in and of itself. And for me, that just doesn't stand on its own 2 feet. It doesn't make any sense, and there really is not a good explanation for that. So I know if I was in your shoes, I would literally say to her, look, I spoke to your father and he's fine. Can you please explain yourself, because this is so weird? And in my opinion, if I was in this relationship, there is no way I would ever take this lightly.
If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to AmITheJerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories.
My former stepmother is one of the worst people that I've ever known, and now she has slowly turned up back in my life in a way that honestly I never expected. Here's what happened. I first met my former stepmother, who we will call Crystal for the sake of the story, when I was about 7 years old, and we didn't realize she was entitled until much later. At first, she was really nice, and my dad liked her for her kind personality, as well as, at the time, her deep faith. When they got married for the first few years, everything was wonderful, and I really got along with my older stepsister. But it wasn't until after she broke her leg that I started to see her entitled side. She was so demanding of us kids to do stuff, which at the time, us kids didn't know how to do. I was about 11 years old being asked to make dinner, and all I knew how to cook at the time was eggs. My dad had put a stop to a lot of it, but she would lay it on thick to him, saying that we should be doing this stuff because her leg was broken, even though it didn't prevent her from getting up to go smoke or grab another beer. It built up over the years until finally my dad had had enough with one incident that probably could be its own story in and of itself. They ended up getting divorced, and my youngest brother is in split custody due to the state that we live in, with my dad having the primary custody. Well, it turns out she was addicted to all sorts of substances, both legal and illegal, and still thinks that she's entitled to us kids even though I'm an adult now. Now, onto the event itself, I got an email from a site people use to look up offenders in your area, if you know what I mean. And specifically, the email was addressed to Crystal. It had her address in it, which I never lived at, as well as her name and phone number, but it was my email. I searched through my email to find out if this was a one-off fluke, but it wasn't. I have about 4 emails for sites that she signed up to using my email address. Now, I saved the emails if I decided to go legal with it, but I decided to be petty and change the passwords on the accounts before deleting them. I honestly don't know when or how she got my email, but I am not the little girl that she could bully around anymore. Yeah, I can't stand like former family members or like people who are like absolutely estranged in the family, who then feel like they have some kind of ownership over you, even though clearly they're not a good person and they're obviously just trying to like use you in some kind of way. And in this case, it's like, oh yeah, you're trying to use my email address, like get lost, lady. So hopefully this ends sooner than later, because from the sounds of it, your stepmother does not sound like a good person. My friend's fiance, as well as my friend group at large, were very rude to my new girlfriend in a way that is truly costing me all of my friendships, because at this point I'm very frustrated and I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, for a bit of backstory, my friends and I had just all moved out and lived in the city just before COVID hit. A buddy of mine matched with a girl on Bumble, and she brought some friends around, and very quickly we became one of those friend groups that dated each other. Now, I was one of the single guys because I didn't want to date within my own friend group. My friend dated this guy for a long time. She seemed cool, but definitely had some of her own issues with maturity and jealousy and other things. And a few summers later, she set set me up with a friend of hers. Long story short, after a month, I knew I didn't want to date her, as we were just not compatible for one another. She took it to heart when it wasn't personal, and she really wreaked havoc on me the entire summer, including telling my friends any secrets that I had, lies about my body, personal details about my family. I mean, you name it, she said it. It ended sour, but I eventually moved on, except for the woman I briefly dated and my friend's fiance. Although we remained civil, everyone could tell that there was tension, and it caused me to feel alienated with my own friends. And my friend later got engaged to the original Bumble match. Fast forward to this summer, and I met someone through my local running club, and pretty quickly we hit it off, and we've been dating ever since then. We've been together for 10 months now, and it's been the healthiest relationship I've ever been in. Unfortunately, I got invited to my friend's birthday party in January, and his fiance had my past fling with her. The entire time my girlfriend and I were there, they were passive aggressive towards me and my girlfriend, and were acting pretty rude by not saying anything to me or her. Now, what hit the hardest was that my friends didn't bother to say anything to us either, because if her fiance's unhappy, then everyone's unhappy. Just before midnight, I left to go back to my apartment with my girlfriend, who was upset. I found out the next day after telling a friend who wasn't there that they were sort of rude for not saying anything, talking to her, and basically pretending in a way that she wasn't there and neither was I. Well, their response was to say, "That's insane. They told me you didn't properly introduce her to every person." And this really made me furious. For people who are my friends, it seems like my friend's fiance made that as an excuse to being rude, especially when I approached them saying her name and that she was my girlfriend, especially when some of them have already met her before and she sat there for almost 4 hours being ignored. I have friends outside of this group, but when I told them this story, they all told me how awful they sound, how rude they are, and how sad it was to treat someone new like that. And since then, some of the friends in that group no longer talk to me as much as they used to. Now, why am I posting this? Well, because next week is their moving in party to their new house where all family and friends are invited. I got a personal invitation from them asking for both of us to attend. Now, I can't help but feel as if this is a trap, and I refuse to put a good person through something like this ever again. So should I leave behind my group of friends? Am I overreacting in some kind of way? Should I call out my friend's fiance on her immature and toxic behavior? Because right now, I don't know what to do. Okay, honestly, these do not sound like good friends at all. It sounds like they've turned their back on you because of some weird misunderstanding or some kind of like circumstance with dating, and now they're literally treating you like crap right to your face while also pretending to still be friends. Like, in my opinion, I think you really need to take these situations for what they are and take them for face value. These people are treating you like crap. No friend in their right mind would act like this, and I think you need to listen to your gut here. Because I know if I was in your shoes, I would happily start focusing on the other group of friends. I would move over to them immediately and not look back. I wouldn't care if these people get upset by that, especially if they're going to be disrespecting you and your girlfriend like that. And you know what? It sounds like your friend's fiance is the reason all of this is happening, and the fact that everybody's going along with that, in my opinion, means that they all agree with this fiance. By them allowing this to happen, it really does mean that they're okay with it. And that, in my opinion, is not the mark of a good friend. And if I was in your shoes, there is no way I would ever want to deal with that. An entitled teacher gives me detention, all because I went to the bathroom in the staff bathroom, resulting in my mom as well as another teacher being livid about the situation. Here's what happened. Okay, so basically what happened is that I ate something bad, and I was really desperate to use the bathroom in my school. It was recess, and all the girls were hogging the main bathrooms like freaks trying to get ready for the Met Gala. Hysterical screaming, unintentional makeup sessions, bathroom hogging to chat with their annoying friends, and to use their phones in private. And as a side note, we don't allow phones in the school day, and they collect our phones until the end of the day, where we retrieve our phones and call our parents and all this other stuff. There are special cases like art students or English class activities where they give students the privilege to keep their phones out. It was so bad that I had to move to our second bathroom, and yes, we have two bathrooms, one with 5 stalls and the other with 15 or 17. And this second bathroom was the bigger option, where the socially anxious people typically go to. Sadly, the security did not bother to unlock it and let me through. Plus, no one had the key for this bathroom yet. I was getting desperate during this time, and I was getting anxious about possibly crapping my pants. In our school, we have girls and boys divided into two sides of the school, where they primarily have lessons in their designated spots, or sometimes they'll go to the other side if their schedule tells them that they're having a class somewhere in the opposite side. There are girls' bathrooms on the boys' side and vice versa on the girls' side, and I wanted to go to the boys' side to use the girls' bathroom there, but sadly I couldn't hold it in, and that's where I discovered the staff bathroom beside bathroom number 2 to be empty. Well, I used it immediately, and I was relieved, but that's where the trouble started. My former math teacher, also known as the vice headmistress, who is the entitled teacher of this story, stood outside. She was with another teacher I didn't recognize who was also visibly displeased, and I tried to explain everything to them, but it simply wasn't enough. She looked at me and said, "What are you doing in in the staff bathroom. I responded back by saying, I was desperate, miss. It really was an emergency. The teacher then said to me, I understand that part, but you could have went to the girls' bathroom that was unlocked. Using the staff bathroom without permission is strictly prohibited. I then said to him, but I went there and it was packed with a bunch of girls. I know that there may be vacant stalls right now, but I ate something bad, and I came this far and I was afraid that something bad might happen. Before I could continue, she interrupted me and said, still, that is unacceptable. You also could have gone to the office and asked for the key for the second bathroom. The staff bathroom are only for teachers and staff use at all times, and you must not use it a second time, else that's a misbehavior email sent to your parents. Understood? I responded back by saying, yes, I understand, but miss, I could have made an accident if I hadn't used the staff bathroom right away. She then said to me, I know that. Still, there are alternative places that you could have went to. You could have went downstairs to the primary bathrooms as well. Now, for reference, the primary bathrooms were prohibited for us 7th through 12th graders, and I couldn't even get there even if I wanted to. In the end, I had to sit in the reflection room as detention after school for an hour for taking a dump in the staff bathroom, and I was facing the walls purposefully from my anger. Eventually, as teachers passed by the room for a good 10 minutes, I spotted my other headmistress who manages the upperclassmen, namely the 10th through 12th graders. She immediately walked in and asked me why I was there. I explained everything and she looked livid after that. She told me that that teacher shouldn't do that, and using the bathroom was basic human rights which they cannot take from us. After bailing me out and comforting me, she had a talk with the other teacher and told me to leave quickly. I also told this to my mother, and she's planning to have a talk with the principal and this teacher about this situation since they kept me from leaving for an invalid reason. I don't have any updates on the situation yet, but right now my mother was truly disappointed, mostly from this crap and also with them not informing my mother about it and making her wait late outside for picking me up to go home. We're currently sorting this entire thing out right now because this entire situation is incredibly frustrating. Okay, first and foremost, you did the right thing by telling your mom, because hopefully your mom can take care of this in a major way. That teacher is out of her mind if she's really gonna act like that and pretend like, oh, you can't use the bathroom for emergencies, and then send you off to detention as if you did something wrong. From the sounds of it, and especially based on the reaction from the other headmistress, it doesn't seem like you're a bad kid at all. If anything, it seems like you're just like a normal kid trying to go through school, and this other teacher has a stick shoved up where the sun doesn't shine and is taking it out on you just because you had to use the bathroom. So seriously, hopefully your other headmistress and your mom chew these people out for what they did to you, because this is absolutely unacceptable. Am I the jerk for refusing to let my sister and her kids move into my apartment simply because I don't feel like I have to share with them, and I'm finally back on my feet after working incredibly hard? Because right now my whole family is saying that I'm the jerk, and at this point I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 28-year-old male, and I've been working my butt off for the last 5 years after a really rough patch in my early 20s. I got laid off twice, I went through a breakup, ended up couch surfing for a while, and even stayed in my car for a couple of weeks. I finally landed a stable remote job last year, cut out all the non-essentials, and started aggressively saving. A few months ago, I got approved for a small but decent 2-bedroom apartment in Texas. It's nothing fancy, but it's mine. I'm not rich or anything like that. I've still got to budget carefully, but just the idea of not having roommates or sleeping in someone's living room feels like I've won the lottery. Well, I made the mistake of telling my mom, and she was happy for me until she casually mentioned it to my older sister, who immediately called me and said, so when should we start packing? Now, I thought she was joking, but she wasn't. It turns out she assumed that because I was moving into a 2-bedroom apartment, it was obviously for her and her 2 kids, and her kids are ages 5 and 7. She's been living with her ex's parents for almost a year, says the situation is toxic, and she needs to get out as soon as possible. But here's the kicker. We haven't even talked in over a year. There wasn't a fight or anything like that. We just drifted apart. And she never once asked how I was doing when I was struggling. I told her gently at first that this place is my fresh start, and I've worked really hard for it, and it's my first shot at peace and privacy in years. Well, she flipped out. She said I was being selfish and that family helps family, and that her kids deserve a better environment. Then my mom jumped in, blowing up my phone. She told me that I should let them stay until my sister gets back on her feet, and that it's heartless of me to let my niece and nephew suffer. Now, everyone in my family is calling me ungrateful and cold, saying that since I don't have kids or responsibilities, I should be the one to make sacrifices. Some even suggested that it's just a couch, like I'm moving into a mansion or something like that. But I've been the person sleeping on couches, and I begged for help and I've gotten silence. I didn't guilt trip anybody, and I didn't try to move into someone else's home. I just figured it out. Now that I finally have something of my own, I'm being told that I'm the bad guy for not giving it away. So truly, am I the jerk for telling my sister that she can't move in with me, even if it means that her and her kids might end up in a shelter of some kind? I honestly feel like I'm drowning in guilt, but I also feel like like I earned this. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Okay, in my opinion, I don't think you're obligated to help them out at all. Maybe that's heartless, but guess what? Just because you have a 2-bedroom apartment doesn't mean that she's somehow welcome to move in. Like, that level of entitlement and just assuming like, oh yeah, I'm moving in, don't worry, I'm on my way. Like, that's crazy and there's no good excuse for that. So no, you're definitely not the jerk here, because trust me, if I was in your shoes, I would feel the exact same way. I caught my husband on multiple hookup and dating websites, which has led me into a downward spiral, as right now I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so at the beginning of the year, I had logged into my husband's computer to fill out some paperwork that needed to be printed. I then noticed that one of his open tabs was a map of a random apartment complex address. Immediately, I felt something wasn't right, so out of curiosity, I looked at the history on his computer, and my god, my gut was right. I found that he had created multiple profiles on hookup websites starting as early as November of last year. And when I say multiple, I'm talking about 15 sites, maybe more. I noticed on the majority of the websites, he was the one to initiate the conversation by sending explicit pictures to random women asking how they felt about casual hookups and wanting to talk more about them. Later on that day, when he got home from work, I confronted him about all of it. He said he wasn't serious about any of it and had created them due to having a mental breakdown, which he showed no signs of having one at the time. He swore up and down that's all it was. Well, about a week after I confronted him, that gut feeling of knowing something was off just still hadn't gone away. So I asked to see his phone, and I was right again. He has multiple dating apps on his phone, some of which were installed back in February of 2024. There were also lengthy conversations on Telegram that showed him asking about all kinds of services, if you know what I mean. At this point, I had gone into a downward spiral and began to experience symptoms of PTSD. By the time I somewhat snapped out of it, he had deleted all of his history on his phone and his computer, along with all the apps and the websites. Now, this tells me that he's hiding more, but every time I ask him about it, he says there's nothing more that he's hiding. I may not be the smartest person in the world, but I do know that when somebody deletes all of their history, that usually means that there's more that he doesn't want me to find out about. So seriously, how do I get him to open up about the honest truth? I am not the type of wife who will constantly nag him about it until it eventually comes out. I stupidly still love him, and I don't want to end our 12 years of marriage, but I don't know how to trust him ever again, or get rid of the extreme PTSD that I still have from all of this. What should I do? Oh man, I can't say much of what you should or shouldn't do, but I know for a fact, in my opinion, if I was in your shoes, I would be like absolutely losing my mind. There's no way I would put up with that for a second, and that, in my opinion, is a red flag that I simply could not ignore. Like, first off, I kind of wish you had taken pictures or screenshots or something, just so you know for a fact that no, you're not crazy, because if we're looking at this legitimately, there is no way this is some kind of like accident. He didn't do this because of a mental breakdown. He did this because, yes, he was 100% gonna cheat on you. Like, that is absolutely what was gonna happen, and I'm so sorry to have to spell that out. So hopefully this works out between the two of you, because what your husband did, in my opinion, is incredibly messed up. Am I the jerk for offering my clothing to a coworker after I lost a bunch of weight? Here's what happened. So I have a coworker that I am very close to, and we eat lunch together every single day. Now, it's important to know that I have a lot of clothes, and so many things that I've never even worn that they still have tags on them. My coworker is always commenting to me that she loves my clothing, and if I ever decide to give anything away, please come to her first. And for reference, we were the same size. And I say we were the same size because recently I lost a lot of weight and I've gone down 5 sizes. I've been working really hard at it, but I haven't been talking about it that much because it seems to be a bit of tension between the two of us. She's never said anything outright, just some passive-aggressive comments about how I'm getting too thin, and I just ignore it because a lot of people say that, and I think it's just a result of the shock of me losing weight. I still have about 30 pounds to lose before I even hit the 150 mark, and I'm still very short. I'm definitely not too thin, and I still suffer from body dysmorphia, so I don't even think I'm thin at all. I recently went through my clothing, and I have a shocking amount of things that have either never been worn or have only been worn once. So I put them together in boxes, and on my next trip into the office, I asked her if she would like me to bring those in so she could go through them. Well, her face took on this very shocked expression, and then she said to me, "Why would you ask me that? Why would you insult me by asking me if I want your hand-me-downs? That is so humiliating." And when she said this, I was stunned, and I think I might have actually said I was sorry and just walked away. To make things even worse, there's another friend in the office who was also my size, and as we went out to the car later that day, she asked me what the boxes were in my car, so I told her they were my larger size clothing and that I had brought them for our other coworker, but she didn't want them even though I didn't go into the details about it. Well, she went nuts and asked if she could go through the box instead. She called her daughter who worked very close by, and we spent the next 45 minutes going through the boxes and getting the stuff that she wanted. They literally took almost everything. While while they were doing it, the other coworker came outside to leave for the day and saw what was happening. And she just got in her car and left, and later that night she texted me and lit into me about me giving the clothing to the other coworker. And now I'm so confused. Did I insult her in some way? And if I did, why would she even care if I gave the clothes to someone else? After several years of a good working friendship, she won't even speak to me anymore. So seriously, am I the jerk in this situation? Because right now I don't know what to do. No, you're not the jerk at all. It seems like this other coworker is just pissed off that you lost all this weight while she hasn't lost any. And instead of still being your friend, she's now trying to be like, oh, I can't believe you, and trying to play like the victim or some dumb crap like that. Like, no, I don't think so. Because you literally still considered her a friend, but she clearly feels otherwise. So no, this is not a friend, and this is not someone you should even have to deal with, because you absolutely didn't do anything wrong.
When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. To finish listening to all the stories, check out the playlist at the top of the description. And if you like Am I the Jerk, make sure to subscribe to Am I the Genius. Everything will be linked down below in the description.